Hey, Earth, how are you?
Hey Sarah,
I'm
I'm
fin-
good. Are you? How are you?
I'm good. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, aw. Brian, I'm sending you both a co-host invite. Oh my gosh, I'm so stoked for this.
How's your day, Sarah?
It's good. My mom lives on the other coast, so I got to spend FaceTime lunch with her and my family, and it was just really nice. Got to watch them all eat while being passed around on a table. So yeah. But yeah, let's give it a sec. I'm really, really excited. What I'd like to do is we'll play the whole thing. It's an hour and 20 minutes, so it's not very long. Um, and then what I would like to do, we can absolutely, if you guys are interested, please come up on the stage. Urs and Brian will be helping me. Thank you so much with people on the speaker panel. And what we're going to do is, hit play. We're going to go through this. I mean, in my opinion, it's a pretty amazing interview with Kevin Moore. I think it says 6 years ago. So my thought process is it came out in 2019. And basically, I'll hit pause on some of the good, juicy parts. We can talk about it. I don't want to hold too big of a conversation between the, I would like to get through the whole thing and then we can kind of like let it roll and everyone can have thoughts and processes. But if you're interested in coming up and sharing a comment during the listening, please jump up. I'll say this again when we have more people in the room a little later. But and then of course, Urs and Brian, at any time while it's playing, you feel like you've got something to say, throw your hand up. I'll wait for a good moment. I'll pause it and we can discuss. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm sorry for barraging you with a bunch of info this morning. Um, but I think it's going to be a good one.
No, I love the bunch of info. This is so just to give you guys a bit of where I came across this, I think in October last year. And I was like, just listening to it, not even note taking, just listening. And I just kind of got baffled. And so I set it aside a couple of months after the holidays. I went back and I listened to it again. And I was like, okay, let's make some notes and do some research. So yeah, let's dig into this. I'm excited. Um Again, if you're interested in coming up to the panel, please, hit the request button and Urs and Brian are wonderfully going to help me. So I'm going to hit play. Let me know you Urs, Brian and or welcome to the stage. Let me know if you guys are having issues, but I think the sound is going to go well. But yeah,
Yeah, just one thing real quick, Sarah.
yeah.
Anybody in the back here has any contact info for a Philip Corso Jr.? I would love that. If anybody knows how to get a hold of them, please DM myself or Sarah or Urs or anybody. That's been a constant uh, kind of a sticking point because we would love to get a hold of him and have Corso Jr. come on because obviously he's getting up there in age. So that's one thing I just wanted to bring up. If anybody has that info, feel free to let us know.
Please ask again later in the space too, Brian. Yeah, we're try. I've gotten some leads. Haven't gotten anything back yet, but yeah, would just love to touch base with him. And you'll see there's certain things he says like this is the time for me to talk about this, and then he'll say something along the lines of I can't talk about this right now. So let's get into this. I'm
Like
gonna.
Sarah,
Yeah, yeah.
do
Go
I
ahead,
do
Nurse.
I let people up right now, or because there's already a few speakers.
Oh yeah, I don't mind. I figured you know, having people up here and then we'll hit pause during some good parts and we can have like a few minute discussion back and forth and then we'll continue going. Um and I kind of figure based on it's only an hour and 20 minutes. So I figure we can get through this pretty quickly. It's not like one of those 3-hour ones where we might have to have like 2 different spaces for it. So, but afterwards we can really dig in. I see Robert in out there, and I'd love to hear his thoughts. John Strader, welcome. Jay Just, Darren, Jean Philippe, good to see you. Felipe, is it Jean Felipe? I'm thinking that's what it is. Orbs,
Casey.
dude. Yeah, you guys, JD, some new faces. Welcome, welcome. Okay, let's get this thing started. Take notes, have thoughts, because I definitely had thoughts. Okay.
Hi, guys, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Moore Show. Now, on
How's that? Are you guys good?
It's clear.
Okay, cool.
today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Phil Corso Jr. Now, Phil is the son of Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso and a public speaker on the subject of ufology, carrying on the legacy of his father's work, the late Philip J. Corso. Now, Philip J. Corso was a member of President Eisenhower's National Security Council and former head of the Foreign Technology Desk at the United States Army's Research and Development Department. Now, Philip J. Corso came forward to reveal his personal stewardship of alien artifacts from the Roswell crash in his book, The Day After Roswell. Now, he tells in that book how he spearheaded the Army's reverse engineering project that led to today's integrated circuits, fiber optics and lasers, Kevlar, and more, and how he spearheaded and seeded the Roswell alien technology to the giants of American industry. So enjoy my interview with Phil. Well, Phil, thank you for letting me interview you here in your home in Florida. This has been many years in the making to have this interview. I didn't even think I'd be sat with you right now because I'd wanted to interview you, but I had no aspirations of coming to Florida right now on my journey because I've just been everywhere else. But synchronicities aligned us where I'm here. You said yes at the last minute, and you've just finished your latter career. And what was that? Just to let the audience know.
I ran a business for 25 years called High Speed Composites, and I built composite aircraft, experimentals.
And you weren't really up for talking about any of this when I first contacted you a few years ago.
That's right. In fact, I think I almost gave you the brush off, which I apologize, but there are reasons for that.
Yes.
I was very busy, and it was a secondary, and there was so much stuff that went on negative that our family had just decided to
enough was enough.
Set it aside.
So if we to sum up in a few words, what is it your dad was famous for?
Well, my dad was famous for not the UFO, but for his work within the government behind the scenes. And the book was never meant to be. My dad was writing his memoirs, and I ran a small business at that time, marine electronics, and he would sit at the desk and take the phone calls while I'd be out working on the yachts. And sometimes it was really funny. President Reagan would call him and he'd stand at attention behind the desk. But
so you had famous calls coming in?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was number one for several presidents on Russia. And like one of the KGB after the wall came down said my father knew more about, the KGB said my father knew more about them than they did. So he was many times called into action, even in his retirement. But the book was never meant to be, but a fella in Vegas named George Knapp, my father, we got turned down 11 times on his memoir books. Nobody wanted an old soldier's memoirs. And there was one paragraph in there that said, when I was in R&D, I planted alien technology and such like that. So George Knapp picked up on that. And that's how the book came into being.
No.
So that's interesting. I just want to throw that out there. So George Knapp, the book itself came into being because that's just such a key person to, put a little pin in, and we'll come back to that.
When you first saw those couple of lines in there, what did you think why Dad had put that in there? If he'd never spoken about that before?
That's correct. Never.
What did you think when you first saw those lines?
And I was always interested in UFOs and airplanes and such like that, you know. So I was overwhelmed. You know, I didn't believe it.
Even though you had an interest in ufology when you were
Right.
younger, you still didn't believe what your dad had put in there.
Well, I came to a reasoning afterwards that I did believe it, and it's very simple. I had a set of photographs that I had taken in Fort Bliss of UFOs, and he always didn't like that. Finally took them away from me. So before the book was written, right before the book was written, I was sitting with a Captain Losley down in Lantana Boatyard, and we were eating lunch with my father. And my father, I asked him for the pictures. So he blushed it off that he had given it to General Salmon, he had given it to Gene Dixon or whatever, and they were gone. And I wanted them back. So my father gets up to go to the restroom, and David says he was black belt, and he would read the respirations in the eye. He says, your father's went up to 180 or something, and you shouldn't ask him any more about these UFOs and such like that. So that was the first hint that maybe something. So when I put that together afterwards, I began believing the story.
And let's just summarize it quickly just here at this moment. Your dad helped to put into R&D departments of companies out there technology that eventually became fiber optics, Kevlar, night vision, transistor, and maybe a few other
integrated
things.
Circuit,
integrated circuit. Integrated circuit. So the transistor was already around before.
Exactly.
And so when this transistor was given to the right type of company, it didn't seem like it came out of the complete extraordinary. That maybe
right.
Yeah.
Well, you remember these to cut you off for a second before I forget, the transistor radio came out with 6 transistors. Well, within a 3-year period, we had integrated circuits. Scientists came to our house like Al Pudolph, Chuck Green, and they said, we know better. It doesn't happen in 3 years.
So that's also an interesting pinpoint. What did he say? Chuck Green, and so Kit Green and Hal Puthoff are coming to his house to talk about energy and different things. I'm trying to look for it, but I believe in another thing that I watched with Peter Levenda. Peter Levenda connects, and I just want to throw this out there, Corso with being correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe being the main person in Italy at the end of World War II. He was the Pope, the next Pope's number one. And as we remember, the Magenta Italy crash happened. So just keeping all of this in mind as we're moving forward, that there are a lot of connections.
So they came to the house to understand after the book was written, how did these advancements from a laser that is big as this room here to a pencil-sized one within 3 years? These scientists knew that something was up.
But would you go along with this statement that even that technology that they've still got now, some of these companies, they still don't really understand what they've got?
No, because if you went back to Leonardo da Vinci and gave him a calculator watch or one of the new, how would he be able to use it?
Even after a century later, he still wouldn't be able to. We weren't ready for that.
Right.
So, okay.
My father says the most important issue that they were after, anybody that even hinted that they had a path to this direction, would be what he calls nuclear alignment, which nowadays we are just getting to that point now with the single strand of carbon that produces a voltage from the wave pattern, single atom. So that's what my father and General Trudeau's number one mandate was, nuclear alignment, which the extra biological suit was made out of.
Just again, describe what could come from that type of technology. Anything?
Oh, from that type of technology, it would be revolutionary because we would have shielding and we could travel in space. As of now, my father says we cannot travel in space because of the radiation. It's lights out. And NASA is now beginning to say that by the radium-3 moon dust that they're going to put 6 feet around the craft. They're going to go underground on Mars and stuff. They know this, and they've known it for some time. And so has the military.
So once we get past the Van Halen belts, is that what it's called? Van
Allen belt.
Van Halen, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
A second one was found, but they call it my dad termed it as friendly space. The gravitational fields between the Earth and the moon. Once we get beyond that, lights are out. We can go to the moon as humans, but not beyond that with our present technologies.
We do become, we the degradation in, bones of astronauts that have spent time on the ISS.
And mentally.
They've done the long-term studies. I mean, what were the ramifications of the astronauts that went to the moon? I'm guessing they were quite ill on the way back, maybe.
Well, we know Edgar Mitchell. We met him quite well. And he had an epiphany, he called it, on re-entering the Earth. And
Kundalini, was it?
And he did understand thoroughly that there were others and that we are very limited from my private conversations with him.
So that's, I just want to say this. He understood. So Edgar Mitchell, if you don't know, was an astronaut, went up and came back down and had an epiphany and created IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is here in California. I've been following that for a really long time. He had a greater epiphany that with consciousness, basically. And what I found to be interesting is that so Corso Jr. is now saying with, others. So I'm assuming maybe he means he saw others while he was out there, which is interesting because if we're to source out this idea of that, we have Jason Giorgiani and also John Ramirez saying that there are, people, entities on the dark side of the moon. So, I mean, again, I'm just trying to throw that out there, keep a pin in this as we move forward.
In space.
Did you think other astronauts, when they were in space, were not all aware of what was going on?
No, they're all aware. My dad was very close to, excuse me, I'll be right back. Stay there. Keep going. Very close to John Glenn. And he spoke with John Glenn several times about some of the developments that we have set aside. We have wonderful developments that have just been lost, put aside. And I'll talk about that at another time. But he was very aware of the limitations.
But how can they take that to their deathbed? How do the astronauts take that to their deathbed that they know that there's more out there? How do you keep that?
Some don't. Look at Edgar Mitchell. Some do not take it to their deathbed. There's many outspoken astronauts, but is it a cover up? I don't know if it's a cover up in their case as much as it is a embarrassment.
But then if India and China are going to eventually go to the moon, are they going to cover it up as well? When does the cover up start?
The cover up starts. You must have the economy to support these secret missions and such. So if it affects the economy, it gets covered up.
So you think it will be an ongoing cover-up if the Chinese, when they eventually do go to the moon?
No. As soon as the old-timers die off that were NSA, CIA, like I mentioned, that never meant to be the cover-up, as soon as they die off, which they are dying off.
There was never meant to be a cover-up.
Never meant to be a cover-up. And now if they reveal it, what happens when they're still alive? Tremendous embarrassment to them, personally even, many of them.
Don't they fear that people would purposefully go crazy because they've got a purpose to do it?
No, not go crazy, but the society, the economy would suffer.
But do you think people would go a bit crazy if they knew there was much more? Do you think they would say, well, this is an excuse now to act wacko-jacko?
My father says they can handle it, and besides, there's been a slow accrement of
Well, look at the movies.
Yes, of
course.
Hollywood.
It's almost like saying, we told you, but we didn't.
Yeah, and recently the new release from the military showing the UFO,
It's all part of...
And Nick Pogus, people are beginning to come forward now, and there is an understanding, and the more than 50% of the people are believing nowadays.
But why haven't they come here in person to the masses? There must be a reason for that. That they've never shown themselves to be saying, here we are. Is if you were spiritually intelligent, right? Because you're not just technologically advanced. We would hope that you're spiritually advanced as well. Some say, well, you don't need to be spiritually advanced to be technology advanced, right? But I think they go hand in hand.
I agree with you. You do need that.
Why, if you were to come here, you would be imposing your truth onto someone else?
Mm-hmm. Well, in history, it shows that when a superior race comes into a society, it always disappears. The society disappears. It turns into something else. History will teach you that.
Well, aren't they going to do that then? If disclosure was going to happen, could that be a natural ramification of what happens?
Well, it could be.
Well, then who wants that really?
Well, it's hard to say why, but it was never meant to be a cover-up. So that right there should tell you that it's okay. But there are still those that don't think it's okay, or they're sworn to secrecy with their top secrets, or they want to protect their money. They're being paid. People reject change.
I always felt as a young kid, I was born into this world and I had no choice of the way it was. It was just the way it was.
Correct.
Have I always agreed with it? No.
Right.
Do I feel that we have free will to create the life we want? Well, before I started my documentary on channeling, I thought we did. I still think we do in some respects, but I don't feel like even if there's an Illuminati out there or whatever, right? I don't let it doesn't control my life. I get on and do what I want.
Yeah.
Right? Would I be okay with a mass change? Well, maybe we would have no choice. Maybe if this was to come out, we'd have no choice but I might, if an Eben was in front of me now, an extraterrestrial biological entity, right? I don't know if I could handle it mentally. Mm-hmm. I don't. And is there others, even though I'm in this field, is there others like me that would maybe say, not want to admit it, but say that, it's just too far out of my acceptance of a reality?
Right. Well, look what it would do to the liberal media.
To destroy them.
Of course. Yeah. So you destroy them, you're hurting the society.
So what's that say about the cover-up for the UFO secret then? It says it's very important.
Well, I have said before on film, I don't believe it's a UFO cover-up. I believe that it's a time travel cover-up. My father...
Okay, I have to take a pause right there. And this is the moment where
I love this part.
I love this part too. I just want to share in shock that this was the part where I was like, I'm sorry, hold on one second. What did you just say? So I'm going to rewind it 10 seconds and let him just flow from this point on. And we'll hit pause in a few. And if anybody has any thoughts to the next few minutes, please share. Hold on one second. I'm just going to.
We had the documents. We don't have them anymore on the Philadelphia experiment. Einstein worked
for the UFO secret then. It says it's very important.
Well, I have said before on film, I don't believe it's a UFO cover-up. I believe that it's a time travel cover-up. My father, we had the documents. We don't have them anymore on the Philadelphia experiment. Einstein worked on it. My father did reveal that. And I just don't believe, I have said at a very important meeting about time travel. They wanted to know what my father knew and such like that. I have stated my issues, that there is no future and there is no past. There's only now. And the way that I think of it is very simple. As a computer, there are icons. You know your birth, you know your mother, and you know your birthdays, you know when your child was born, and each one is a picture within the brain. Well, the way that time works is those icons are sideways. There is no future, there is no past. There's only the memory of those icons. And can you draw from them as a human being? Yes, you can. But there are those that cannot do that. So if the ET would land here, he would have that ability, and it would segregate our society. See, there are other issues besides religion. involved. There's the mental parts that are involved. I don't know if that's hard to follow or what, but these are the type of mind games that need to be played to understand why they do not reveal themselves to the masses.
Okay. I'm just going to take a pause there. Urs, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
When he uttered those words, I had the chills. I couldn't believe I had to go back and replay it like 4 times. Then he goes on to say like there's no future and there's no past. It was like so awesome. Sorry, I just had to share that.
No, thank you. Yeah, I had to too. I've listened to this a couple of times and I it's interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it's real. I'm just saying like also I another thought that came to my mind is I encourage you to at some point after we're done this space, watch this on your own because what's also really amazing is to watch Corso and the way he talks, the way he breathes, his eye blinking, I feel he's sincere. And really that's important. So like we're kind of losing a little bit because I get to see it, but you can only listen. So I would recommend that. And also shout out to Kevin Moore for keeping him talking and asking these questions because I mean he does a fantastic job. So all right, we'll get back to it.
Going back to what time is, different to what we think. Try to break down what you're just saying there. So
Jesus is dying on the cross right now.
So all past lives, future lives are happening
we
now.
are limited beings. All we can see is when we were born and our timeline to when we die. It's insignificant in relation to the trillions and the universe. It's insignificant. There is no start if you look at that. It's like Voyager looking back from the edge of our universe, looking back and seeing one single pixel. Is it important? No. Our whole existence is not important into relation. So why should we measure time? We know we go on after our death. We know we were somewhere before our death. My thinking is that human existence is just a coffee break from eternity. So I know this is deep, but what I'm getting at here is very simple, Kevin. There are other reasons why we don't know. Okay. Some can handle it, some can't.
Okay, so if all time's happening at once, so past and future lives are happening now, right? And present moment is really all we've got. The rest is an illusion, right?
Right.
Why is that then? When you say that time travel is the real agenda here, not that we've been visited or there's other technology out there. Why do you still say that time travel is the real agenda here, though?
Well, time travel is the cover up because sitting at this table, which I will explain maybe further later, I was tricked into it by the head of the black projects for the Air Force. And I can mention his name. He probably wouldn't mind, but I won't. And I was sitting at this table with Dalai Lama's representatives, with military representatives, with scientific representatives, and the man that was heading this up, he wanted to release time travel to the universities. And he makes all the transformers for the Philadelphia experiment. His name is Mr. Beckworth. He's passed about 4 years ago. And we're sitting at this table, and I'm tricked into the head of the table, and I say, what the hell is going on? Why am I here? So the colonel from the black says, just sit, Phil, and answer these guys' questions, Well, I never realized it, but I knew their questions before they answered it. I don't know if I was mind reading or just up on the what they were going to ask because of the way it was presented. So it goes around the table. Should they reveal Mr. Beckworth's time travel machine to the universities to study? Should they make it public, in other words? And everybody voted on it. And they wanted to know what I thought about it. And I said, well, it's very simple. I work on aircraft. They go from point A to point B. No questions asked. But in time travel, you have to have a benevolent reason to go from point A to B. Otherwise, you bring back excess baggage. The Dalai Lama's representative stood up and he says, I told you military people that. They're having problems. That's what the meeting is about. Now, I won't go into the problems because it's probably too mental to understand for most of us. I quite don't even understand it. But that was the synopsis. Then we get up and we all go into another room and watch the time travel machine disappear. My father said,
Okay, that was that was a lot. I just want to say that when he said this, that you have to be benevolent, I immediately thought of because I had watched this, like I said, a bunch of times. So obviously the following time that I watched it was after Jake Barber and his crew came forward. And so it was actually this is where I started putting things together, because it was after Red Panda Koala had Jake Sarfati in a space, or Jack Sarfati. And Jack was talking about how he completed Einstein's equation or fixed it, and how, even though no one has, I mean, well, he said a year ago on Danny Jones that, what was it? Lawrence Livermore College was going to be testing a piece of his um, equation to see if they could prove that. And I did reach out to Lawrence Livermore College. I actually uh, sent multiple emails to multiple people across the entire college to see like who I could get information from. And I never heard anything back. I didn't think I would. And then because I had asked Jack, I said, did they do that test a year ago? And he said, well, you'll have to ask them. I think he's hilarious. So anyway, it just got me thinking that, like if we think possibly time travel is real, then maybe Joe McGonigal is doing it via remote viewing when he went to Mars and they saw him and they had a conversation with him. Maybe Jack Sarfati is, maybe he has the right science. I don't know. But also the benevolent part, you have to have a good feeling. And we were in a space with Orbs last night, and he, admitted that he was out there with the team, the Jake Barber team, at one point, and that it is a good feeling. You do have to feel safe to connect with these entities. So I'm just keeping like the ideas going that like maybe there's more than one way to travel. And I know that time travel is just such a corny phrase, but I don't know what else to call it. So I'm just throwing that out there. And I'm just going to keep on going.
the Air Force did this with revolving fields, the same as the Aldridge had during the Philadelphia experiment. And two of the airplanes winked out of existence, so they quit doing it. We have had time travel for a long, long time, our submarines and such. I don't want to get into too many things, though, that are hard to believe, but the Earth and our society is not what most people think it is.
But obviously, there'll be people watching this that will be like, well, that's unprovable. What he's saying there, there's no proof.
I understand.
And how do you prove that he says he saw it? He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
But as some of these researchers like Richard Dolan would say, without the proof, we can't, there's nothing to move, there's nothing to grab at.
Well, there's no proof to God.
No, and most people in this world believe in a form of it.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I can't answer that.
No, but I'm just...
The smoking gun.
This is what...
Everyone is looking for it.
This is what people are thinking that are watching this right now. So, if you can change the future or past, you could do a lot of damage with that.
If you only knew when you were going to die, you would do a lot of damage with that, with your own self. Because you would be doing things, you would be risking your life, doing things that are changing your life.
Where did Mr. Beck, or whoever this person is, get the technology for time travel from?
He developed it with the military during the war. And during the war, the Battle of the Atlantic, the war was being lost from the U-boats, the packs. So the Germans had a mine that was magnetic, and it would have ships pass over, come up in the middle, and blow several ships up. My dad and others, my dad went to Einstein during this time of Eisenhower, when he was with Eisenhower, and said, can we do anything about this? Eisenhower says, I mean, not Eisenhower, Einstein says we can move it through time and space 500 yards or whatever it was. I'm just using that 500 yards. I don't know how far it is. So the they came up with the Philadelphia experiment. There really was such a thing that the ship did move from Newport News to Port Richey, and there was deaths involved and such, but they did perfect it. And it was not invisibility. I had the reports and they were taken from me. And from my father, we had to hide all of his notes for the first 5 years because we were being infiltrated by the cover-up services. And this ship would actually be able to move the mines 500 yards through time and space. Highly developed, which is time travel. With the ship, the All Ridge. Would the ship move with the mine, or the mine would be moved by the ship's technology? The mines would be moved by the ship's technology, and it wasn't just one ship. We had highly developed it after that. 2 revolving fields of the Earth's frequency, which is 8 point something megs. But what about all those sailors that were on that ship that knew of it? There was an accident in the beginning. It was perfecting it. But how many people on the ship knew of what technology was really on there? I don't know. It could have been compartmentalized. I remember reading the report, and I'd rather not talk about it. But my point is, if I was on a ship and that happened to me, I've signed the Secrecy Act, probably, right? Yeah. So can I really talk about it? But then I could say, then your dad signed the Secrecy Act, did he not? Well, he had 9 clearances above top secret, but he was also the classifier and the declassifier. My father took the first nukes to Europe. He was involved in many, many, many things. Star Wars. He recommended it to President Reagan. So my father was very behind the scenes on quite a few things. So all I'm saying to people is, there proof? Yeah, you saw the black bag. There's proof.
Okay, real quick, just pausing that. Go ahead, Urs. Urs, are you there? You have your hand up.
Oh yeah, this I think went back a few minutes, but JP said that the test was canceled. And he said the lead investigator was Michael Anderson. I think he's talking about the warp core reactor.
Oh, okay. JP, can you DM me that? Do you mind?
I asked him if he could come up and explain. I don't know if he can, but yeah.
Oh, definitely. Well, maybe he can come up at some point, but yeah, that would be great. Interesting. So yeah, I only read about the Philadelphia experiment like a while ago in a slew of conspiracy theories, as we all have. And so I do a book on it, and I printed out some stuff. So I will be diving into that. That'll be exciting. But I also, yeah, JP, if you can come up and explain. If not, please DM me the information. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. As far as the time travel goes, we're starting to see quite a few people come out on this. You've seen Steve. I talked with Angeli last week. There's a few other things that are going on that kind of coincides with this. And I can't help but think, we as humans can understand our past and we can understand what the future is, whether or not we can make it. But we at least understand those timelines. But if there are different parallel types of timelines that we can tap into, and perhaps either through nuclear fission or fusion, we've been able to do that. And I think that might be what's underlying some of this.
Thank you. Go ahead, Urs. I agree.
Also, going back to Star Wars and all these programs, does that also correlate with what Harold Malgren said about the direct energy weapons? Do you think they, correlate to one another?
I mean, for me, I have 2 more hours of the Malgrim I have to get through. I have not finished that. So I definitely want to come back to that. But I am finding a significant amount of overlap between Philip J. Corso Sr., so I'll just call him Senior for right now so we don't get them confused. I'm finding an overlap with Senior and Malgrim. And not and I'm curious, did they meet? Did they cross paths?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Like,
Yes. Yes. Did they have coffee breaks together? Talk about this stuff. Because uh, as we were, I mean, so like just also something to think about, just some things that I've come across in the 1933 magenta uh, crash in Italy. um, I've come across, and I'm not sure if it was Peter Lavenda. I'm sorry guys, I've got to go back and look at what I've gotten so far, but they moved I believe that they were working together with the Nazis at that point with everything. So when Philip when Senior was in Italy, and he is having this relationship with all the top dogs in Italy, and obviously probably in my mind read into the 1933 crash, in my opinion, to be able to, like as Junior was saying earlier in this, that the Kevlar, the laser, all of this new technology is now coming from that. So keeping that in mind, that's early. That's 33. Whereas, when I started really getting into the UFO topic and the theories, I thought the Kevlar and all of that might have come from the 47 crash. But anyway, and maybe it did. I don't know. This is me speculating and throwing ideas out there. Again, we have to put on the woo hat to talk about this. So go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so I'm gonna throw a little more woo hat for you. If you look into Corso Senior's parents, they came from Italy. Now I don't know if there's a connection there or not, but obviously uh, uh, Italian. So Corso Senior was a second generation American. So they came over from Italy, and perhaps that's why he had a connection with Italy too. Now perhaps there's some better internet sleuths that can shed some more light on that connection as well. But it's interesting. Grass brings it up. You got the Knights of Malta coming out. I'm not throwing a bunch of conspiracies out here, but it seems like we're putting some pieces together in the puzzle here.
No, I completely agree. And I'm glad you brought up the Knights of Malta. And I can't figure out, was it Malgrim or Lavenda right now? I'm confusing the two. I think maybe Lavenda also brought it up. Lavenda does a great piece.
Well, for sure.
Okay. Lavenda also does a 2011. You can find it online. He does a really amazing piece, a YouTube presentation with slides. It's great. Maybe we'll do that. Pardon me. Maybe we'll do that at another time. But anyway, the Knights of Malta, I did like a deep dive quick into that. It was not a very deep dive, but a quick overview, and I found out that you have to be a noble bloodline. And Corso Senior was a part of the Knights of Malta. So if his parents were from Italy, you know what I mean? Like now you're stringing, like this is where I need to pull out Obsidian. If you guys are really into this, I highly recommend. I'm not getting paid by Obsidian, but I really like it. It's super easy, and you can build a web on it. And that's where I've been building my webs for all of my research. Within like the past year. I'm very new to it. But anyway, go ahead, Urs.
Also, going back to Harold Malgren and Phil Corso Senior, I think they were both involved in MJ12, right? And Corso was the unofficial 13th member that no one really knew about. So yeah, maybe they did meet at some point.
And I think we can hit on that, Sarah, maybe later. Um,
Yes.
I've got the Woods, kind of unofficial. I don't want to share with everybody, but at least we can read from it. With Wood and his father, their unofficial MJ12 list, and so we can look on that as well. Ursula, to go to your point, uh, General Arthur Trudeau, which was Corso Senior's commanding officer, is also on that list.
I love it. I love it. There are so many connections. So yes, we're going to get through this. We are 25 minutes in, 24 minutes in, 20 seconds. And we have less than an hour. So let's hit through it. And then, we're going to do a breakdown because, as you can see and hear, or at least hear, this is a pretty exciting piece. So I'm going to go.
Do I want to talk about that? Yeah, I'll talk about it. But what's it going to bring? It's going to bring condemnation down on our family again.
So real quick, I just want to say that there was a point when Corso came out and he did like a lot of you know, UFO cons or whatnot, and he was laughed out of the room. People were not believing him, and they, you know, and that really hurt him, and so he left doing public speaking. So this is why this is such an important interview.
And that's always a side effect of this, potentially, right? Mm-hmm. But let's look at this. Let's just go back to the time travel things before we move on, and we will cover what you just said there as well. So, if that's what they had then, this wasn't reverse engineered from UFO technology.
Yes,
the ideas were.
Yeah, the Germans had a UFO. My dad said. Night vision was given to Fort Belvoir because they had already had the Germans' night vision. They planted the artifacts into the areas and then took them back, and the military had the first priority, and then the civilian, they said you can use it to make money or whatever. So yes.
But if Einstein was working on the Philadelphia experiment, for example, where did Einstein's theories come? Where did those ideas come from? Were they from Einstein?
Yes.
Or were they from reverse engineered technology plus Einstein?
They were from Einstein, but to implement it was from reverse technology.
So there must have been crashes prior to 47.
Yes, there were. The Germans had a crash, and my dad was in charge of Operation Paperclip for Eisenhower that brought the German scientists here. They brought the technology with them.
So the Germans,
from their crash.
So the Germans,
timeline before Roswell 47.
Yes, and America must have got hold of some of these secrets.
All of them.
All of them, right? Yeah.
Except for what the Russians had nothing. My father and General Trudeau used to laugh at the Russians when they used to try to make a space shuttle and make a SST. I mean, they would laugh at them because they did not have it. They still today do not have the technology. It's a joke.
So you think they've perfected a better version of time travel right now, the government?
Oh, absolutely.
But then what's that doing? I mean, if they're changing reality,
excessive baggage. Remember that word I said? That is in a benevolent universe, there is no paradox where you go back and kill your father and you don't exist. It's very, very involved, and I don't think we should go into that direction right now.
Okay, but if there were changes going on in this reality, would I know the difference if someone's gone back in time, for example, and changed something in the past, and they come back to this time, they're never coming back to the same timeline. They're not coming back to my time. They're going back to a parallel universe.
Well, that's the way it works. Let me explain it real quick, if I may. You go back in time. Do you come forward in that same parallel? No. You're growing forward in a different parallel. You go back again, you're growing in, and you say, well, what's that got to do with this first timeline?
Right.
What has one wave got to do with the other wave?
Right.
It changes it.
It does ripple across.
It does ripple across, yeah. And that's the way reality works. With one timeline, only with one timeline.
So they're going back. They've made a change, whatever that is. They steal gold from somewhere, right? Okay. So that's going to make it. That should make a difference to this timeline that they came from.
Well, it does.
But they never go back to the original timeline. Then go back to another version.
Yeah. Let's take the Roswell craft, for instance.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. Okay. Let's just say theoretically that I build this ship in the future. Let's say 2034. And I load it with a bunch of technology. And I send.
So really quick, as he's talking, and I'll bring it back a few seconds. He actually built like this little. It's like about as big as the palm of a man's hand, a large man's hand, and it's like a little craft. It looks like a triangular saucery craft, and it even has seats in it. When you look at the top, so that's just so that you know he is showing so he actually built this. So I'm just gonna go back. Just a little bit. Okay.
Okay. Let's just say theoretically that I build this ship in the future. Let's say 2034. And I load it with a bunch of technology and I send it back, 1947. And I say in 1947, okay, Americans are smart enough to take this technology and move forward with it. Okay. Well, my father and General Trudeau said, maybe this technology is going to work in reverse. It may not, there's always a yin and a yang to technology. Look at the internet, the trouble it's causing right now and such. So maybe the message wasn't strong enough. So maybe when this grows forward into the next reality, and I build it again and I send it back, I'm going to put a little stronger message in here. They didn't get it. You see? Now, does that affect this one over here? Absolutely. It all runs together as a ripple in that
So it
pond. Right
automatically ripples to the other universe.
see the pond?
Just like it, yeah.
One's reinforcing the other.
But if you're sending me that back, as we progress here, you're progressing quicker.
Yeah.
Are you progressing spiritually quicker?
Well, that's the question my father and General Trudeau had. Technically, we would be able to take these advances. Morally, can we take these advances? They toyed with that and they toyed with that and never came up with an answer, my father said.
So this could be factions or split off from groups in the future that are trying to change their path. So let's look at that then. Did your dad believe that the craft, and this is a replica of what the craft looked like?
Which my dad worked with a fellow named MacDonald, a young man, and they drew it out and engineered it forward with two other guys, two other ex-military.
If this was from the future, then...
Have you ever seen the planes I build, the velocities? These are called winglets. And it's a pusher with a propeller back here and has the canard. Right. Rutan's pictures up there. Very similar. And my father always said, came to the wheel wells, and it changed the subject for a second, came to the wheel wells on planes I built, said that's where the anti-gravity devices go. Now, that's all. Won't speak no more about that part. Go ahead.
But then when I had my UFO experience, I saw, I think it was, a silver it was, but a circular craft.
Of course.
Why is that circular craft different to this one that was sent back?
You see the bottom? Look at the bottom. Look like heat tiles, right?
Yes.
This is living biology. And what you're seeing is the aura around it, the aura around it, living biology. It died after it crashed.
Okay, I'm pausing it right there because what's amazing is that what we've come to learn also with people coming forward is that they are live technology, and that that is how our psi assets are able to connect with the craft itself. It's so fascinating, like just these small pieces that are coming together. I mean, if none of this is true, okay, but at some point you got to put the woo hat on and kind of keep it on to walk yourself through all the different source material and witnesses and people coming forward that are leading them this way. So yeah, go ahead, Urs.
Oh, yeah, I raised my hand right before you stopped it because I was so excited when he also said that, coming from him, it somehow means a lot more. Like saying like these heat tiles that it was living biology. That's so exciting to hear, even though we all talk about it all the time. And I'm so excited when I talk about it. Sorry, that like because even my own dad has said that these things are alive, and he's been saying it for like since to me since I was a kid. So when somebody else says that that's like it's Phil Corso's son, right? I got so excited. I'm sorry, I just had to say that. It's really amazing that we are learning that these things are alive. And even when we record some of them, you can tell like certain ones do seem alive. And yeah, so just want to say that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Ursula. If I could jump in. So just for the people that are joining us, Sarah's playing the Philip Corso Jr. interview. And now, Sarah, what was the exact year on this one? This was done by Kevin Moore.
Yeah, so it says 6 years ago. So I'm putting it at 2019. He references the Blumenthal and Kane New York Times thing that came out, and says in the very beginning. And so basically,
Yeah, so that was post 2017.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was 2017. So I think that this interview took place in 2019. Correct. Yes.
Yes, and so the reason that this is important, and I think some of the parallels that Sarah and Ursula and what Philip Corso is drawing here is that we're starting to see now with the new whistleblowers. We're going back to this original interview because I am with Sarah on this one. I think this is genuine. I think he's being honest. I'm not getting anything deception wise, but we're starting to connect. Okay, wait a minute. Let's go back to this and see what some of these other new whistleblowers have started saying. And holy crap, sorry for the language, but this stuff is starting to connect a whole bunch. So I just wanted to bring that up if anybody's new to listening here.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. Yes. And I also encourage people at some point after today, watch it. And look at in my mind, he's genuine. You can look at the way he holds himself, the way his hand movements are. Um, and then also pick up on the points where he says, I don't want to talk about that part right now. He's very focused on what he feels comfortable saying in the time. Um, that being said, there is an interview that came to my attention that I believe he did in the early O's, and he doesn't talk about any of this. So it's interesting that this is the time for this. So yeah. Anyway, moving on.
And it went into two different places. I know it's getting very...
Okay, this is fantastic. I've got to take this back a second. Now, this is something that I'm working on currently, but let's just
Won't speak no more about that part. Go ahead.
But then what's this? When I had my UFO experience, I saw I think it was a silver, but a circular craft.
Of course.
Why is that circular craft different to this one that was sent back?
You see the bottom? Look at the bottom. Look like heat tiles, right?
Yes.
This is living biology. And what you're seeing is the aura around it, the aura around it, living biology. It died after it crashed. And it went into two different places. I know it's getting very involved. There was Corona, and there was also Roswell. Part of it went there 10 years, part of it went back here 10 years. It's a time travel machine, remember. Now, what does it has to do? It has to go outside our atmosphere in order to time travel. We know time changes in the satellites, and the atomic clocks have to correct them, okay? So we understand space-time now to a certain point that the scientists have. Do they need to understand more? Yes. It's falling apart. It crashed.
I do apologize. Oh dear. Yes.
It would take many, many hours for me to explain this. I'd be glad to do it because that's my subject.
No. Okay. So wasn't the Rendlesham Forest incident? Wasn't that craft supposed to be intelligent? They said it was from the future.
Yes, and say everything is all right in the code. It said everything's all right in the future.
Then disappeared.
It can't stay.
No.
You know why it can't stay? It destabilized. All the crafts that have crashed have been taken back. It can't stay here.
Where is this craft now?
Back to where it belongs. The pieces. Not only the pieces. Now, my father had some pieces, but understand the Air Force took most of it. This was only what was put in a Jeep and put in a file. And then the file was delivered to my dad by General Trudeau when he came aboard in 1960. But the crafts can't stay here. It destabilizes.
So this would have been a biological and conscious AI craft. These would have been the evens inside the craft.
These are night viewing devices. There's a 3.5 degree sweep here. Through the atmosphere, it flies this way. They view from the bottom. It has a field density device. Remember that word. The density is lower in the front and higher in the back. Field density device. Do I know how to build it? Absolutely.
Have you?
Well, let me tell you, when my dad was in Roswell revealing the book, Whitley Strieber, I sat at the table with him in breakfast that morning. He says, and usually I'm not embarrassed. And he says, are you ready to build a craft? And I turn red in the face. I can't answer. My wife answers and says, she says, no, it's your father's time now. It's not your time. Now, does the military know how to do this and all? Yes, they have known for a long time.
Okay, real quick. Sorry, go ahead, Urs.
So when he says that they destabilize And then, then he says that they can't stay and they have to be taken back. Do they mean that these things go back on their own? That part was really awesome to hear. Like, it was like, whoa, they destabilize and they go back. So maybe that's why we don't have as much reverse engineered tech, is because a lot of them go back, do you think?
I don't know. This part always, it's interesting because remember, when Jason Sands said that he overheard the call that stated that they were coming back for the entities and the tech, so I don't know, and this would absolutely be a follow-up question that I would absolutely ask him to dig down deep into, especially. So another thing that I'm not sure you guys might have picked up on is the fact that they don't time they I believe what he was saying is that they have to go up in space to do some stuff, and then they come into here, and that's how it's done. Like, it has to be done up there. He might go into it again.
Do the civilians know how? No. It's a time-released schedule. Is it now? Can I release it? Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to rewind that just a few seconds because this is pretty fascinating what he's talking about right here. In my opinion, I think he's talking about disclosure. It's a time-released disclosure, which we all know about.
Do this and all? Yes, they have known for a long time. Do the civilians know how? No. It's a time-released schedule. Is it now? Can I release it? Yes.
What was that device at the front called? It was called a
field density device.
What does that do?
It changes the density. Think about that for a minute. If you can control the density of matter, it's a technological advance that would be 2,000 years away.
So when this is moving, its density is changing as well, or has changed.
It could change the density, yeah, and that's how it travels through time. Remember, a tablespoonful of collapsed star can fall right through the Earth. Density. That's all the universe is. It's motion and density and space-time.
You were just saying that the military could reverse engineer this craft, maybe.
They already have.
But how do you reverse engineer AI from technology 2,000 years or more in the future?
Well, because my father said in research and development that they came to the conclusion in 1963 that there were more advancements that year than last year and all the previous years in history. It's exponentially up. They can literally do anything they want to do.
So you feel by now that graph's just gone off
My
the
dad
scale?
said, yes, absolutely. My dad said that we have absolutely caught up with ET except for biology. They're still ahead of us in biology.
But in my lifetime, this technology, I may have seen it, a scrap of that technology when I had my UFO.
Time travel. You saw time travel, not a UFO experience. You saw a time. You notice how some of the UFOs that appear are opaque? They're not quite there and all. They're not, and they wobble around. They're not quite developed from the time they came from, and they're not quite here and not quite
What
there.
about cigar shape?
Pardon me?
What about cigar shape?
Yeah, say it's all.
Because it seems
It's all our future, no matter where it came from. If it came from out there, it's still our future.
But in my lifetime,
It's our future that also brings back some of this.
But in my lifetime, I don't know. Maybe I'm creating my reality saying this. I don't feel that this is ever going to be released, that they've reverse engineered something like this. And also, the technology that will give us free energy is never going to come out in my lifetime. Why do I say that? Like, so confident for? Have I got it wrong?
Field density.
But right now, we're relying on conventional power plants,
Of course.
conventional technology.
No such thing as solar. No, it's
we've got this
carbon footprint.
We've got the normal space program still just trying to evolve as it is. Scientists, with their understanding,
It's a rouge. Because astronauts have come back and been very angry. In fact, one of the astronauts said punched the director in the nose.
In NASA?
And he said, yeah, in NASA. And he says, why did you do that? He says, how dare you send us there on bicycles when the military's there in Ferraris?
But
Boom. That's amazing. That statement. I want to know what astronaut did that. I love that because, how does he know that the military is there, on these majorly big tech? Like, did he see the other side of Mars? You know what I mean? These are little questions that I like to ask. These are the thoughts that are going through my head. This is where it's like, how much source material can I find that can connect these dots so that we can better understand what is happening, like what are they actually getting at here. Go ahead, Urs, and then Jay Just.
I was just going back to what he said when these things shift in and out of our dimension. That's where I thought it was so interesting too, because sometimes when you see these UAP, they're kind of like not really here, but not really there. And so that was really, really interesting if you heard that part. Yeah, so that part's fascinating.
Go ahead, Jay Just, your hand is up.
So I wanted to point out, he said it's all in our future. My question is, does that mean that the ETs are us, that we're the base point, and the ETs that come back are us? Or, are there not other life forms in our solar system or around us that could possibly reach us?
Well, in this one, he says that he can't tell us what we haven't get there yet, but it's in here. But Sarah probably wants to add to that.
Yeah, I thought of that too. I'm like, but my thought process is just with some other interesting source work that I've gone down in the past couple of weeks. It seems that it's all of the above. In from where I'm standing right now, I definitely feel as though I'm looking at all of the above. Um, at this point, that there are apparently reptilians and Nordics, and you know what I mean? Like, I mean, are there? But like at some point when you're researching, you kind of have to say this is a greater possibility. So keep that in the back of your head. Chan, welcome to the stage. Do you have something brief to say before I hit play?
Yeah, I just want to say it makes complete sense because time is radial, so it makes sense that they would have to go back because once they come, they need to go back. It's radial. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hang out for a bit. I'm going to hit play. We're going to continue this on. We have, sadly, I mean, I just want to hang out and talk to Corso Jr. We sadly only have like, I don't even know, less than an hour with him left here in this interview, but we'll continue on.
And that could be looked up.
And still now, though, where is this out there in helping us with progressing us as mankind? Is the government has kept it a secret, or the factions within the government?
Okay, see this table here? My father said they developed a nuclear plant the size of this table, and it put out RO, of water in Alaska for 6 years without being touched. He went to John Glenn and mentioned this. Also, they had a car that ran off 4 flashlight batteries for a year. Now, there's a technology that they still don't know about. And I'm going to tell you what the technology is. Fluid amplification. That's an oxymoron, according to scientists. You cannot amplify fluid. It can't be compressed. There's an integrated circuit that's in there, and the military knows about it, that amplifies hydraulics within a microcircuit. Now, those technologies are there. Why don't we use them? Because of the political scene.
Now, your dad, he never, all the information you know now that you've been describing to me, this all came out once the book started to come out?
No.
No.
This has always been with me ever since I was a small child. It's the same as you have told me that you have certain knowings too.
But no, I mean, sorry, let me
It's
ask
a pre-programming, I believe.
But what you know about this? Mm-hmm. Did your dad tell you about this? What you know about
after?
That's what I mean. Sorry. So your dad explained about the craft to you after...
But I already knew most of it.
The book came out?
I already knew most of it.
And how did you know most of what you just told me?
Because I've had many, many experiences as a young man.
UFO experiences or alternative experiences?
Time travel experiences.
Did you ever tell your dad about your experiences in the end?
You know, that's a good question. I think so, because some of it, as my father was having a encounter, I was having it also. But we never really talked about it. I can't remember ever really talking about it.
So
only the photographs he didn't like.
So your UFO experiences in your early years, which only came out for you to talk about, maybe even now, is this the first?
It only came out after the book.
After the book,
because you know it's
yeah. That to me shows some sort of connection to these beings that you've got as well. You know, it's some sort of family lineage kind of
absolutely
connection.
My sons, you know, they don't talk about it anymore because it only brings heartaches. And, you know, everything on the book has already been said. But the experiences afterwards, for instance, like I told you about the president and stuff, you know, these are real experiences. You know, we've had CIA pull up in front of the hangar in vans full of electronic equipment and stuff. You know, it was ongoing. And what I say, the reason I'm mentioning this is, if it wasn't true, why the hell have we had all these experiences afterwards? Lawsuits and you know, infiltration, coming in the house, taking things. If it wasn't true, they wouldn't be bothered with it.
Well, why have they left you alone now?
Made a deal. Made a deal.
Are you breaking that deal speaking to me?
Probably. But it's been years after that deal. I've told you about the deals in private, and that was a long time ago. 15 years, five years after my father's death. So I'm 74, going on 75 soon. Do I really care anymore? Nah, but I care about my family. I don't know what it implicate, you know, how it would affect them. You know, so do I care? Kind of, yeah. Do I want to tell? Kind of, yeah. But my business is closed, so maybe I can reveal a little bit. I know what to reveal and what not to reveal.
How much of what your dad's... Okay, Stanton Freeman said to me in a previous interview that your dad just wanted to be famous. He wanted the fame. He invented the story.
Look at his career. There's paperwork to back it up. How can you invent a lifetime of a career like this?
And that paperwork is, again, remind us?
It's his career. My father's career.
Can I have a look at it?
Absolutely.
So this is
took the first nukes. As a young man, my father never laid a hand on me. I can't remember him telling a lie or fabricating, except for a few things in the book that he was forced to fabricate by others that only wanted to make money. He kind of went along with them. He got angry at the end and went through a book and yellowed everything out that wasn't true.
How did he get to the rank that he did? I mean, how do you get to that rank?
My father had a photographic memory, and it was so strong that after the book, he would be describing things to people, what color shirt you had on 10 years ago and such. And I'd tell my dad, taper off, Dad. It's making it unbelievable. You don't need to describe it in detail. But that was my father's memory. How did he become an intelligence officer? He was drafted into the military. He couldn't leave with his other friends. I have that original stories. Because of his photographic memory, they put him in officers candidate school. And then they decided to send him to Cambridge University before the war. We had no intelligence. So he was taught the intelligence, came back after the war to Fort Riley, Kansas, and taught intelligence to the British used to say, how green our ally. Because my dad didn't know crap when he first went overseas to Cambridge University.
So he worked his way up.
And then he went with MacArthur. And back then, all they had was the microtapes, you know. But my father interrogated over 1,000 prisoners himself. And he took a different stand. Instead of not believing them, he believed everything they said. So he said on the Panmunjom peace talks with North Korea. And the enemy knows their own weakness. So he put together He was the only officer ever celebrated and given medals from the Air Force because they did the narrow torpedoes and went into the big, wide rice dams. They would bomb them and they'd be repaired the next morning. But when you put delayed torpedoes in there that go off at different times, end of the war. Food is gone. So the peace talks, I'm not saying my dad single-handedly did this. There were others, many other brilliant people involved. But that's the type of person my father was. He could remember all 1,000 interrogations. He was unusual. Strangest man I ever met.
But had he come across the Roswell incident prior to getting hold of that cabinet?
He didn't. He wasn't at Roswell.
So it was that compartmentalized the secret was?
Yes, it was. He was not at Roswell, but he was in. Stan Freeman said, MJ-13. Your father said he was on that. It doesn't show his name. No, it doesn't, because he was the person that MJ reported to for Eisenhower. That's why Eisenhower called him in and said, what's this all about, Corso? So Freeman didn't have all the information.
MJ-12, you mean?
MJ-12, yes. My father was the 13th member of it, not on paper. He was the one they reported to. Colonel North's job, liaison. So Stan Freeman doesn't have all the information. And he says, your father was not a colonel. Well, when a lieutenant colonel retires, they always move you to the next rank. It's an honorary service. He doesn't know that. He was never in the military.
And you've got in that room in there, which we're just showing now, his medals.
Yeah. The one he's the most proud of, Kevin.
So we're looking at medals.
The Italian
IDs.
decoration as knight. He was the only American because he was G2 of Rome after the war. And there's a whole story in there I would like to see printed, a whole book. It's fantastic. And I would like to see that printed. And he was the only American to ever be knighted by the King of Italy. He was very proud of that medal. I have all the certificates also.
Okay, so real quick, we're just going to take a quick pause. First, I just want to shout out to Science Bob. From me to you, our community is so, so grateful to have you. So glad that you are on your way to mending well. Thank you for being here with us. Feel free to jump on the panel if you're up to it. If not, no pressure. We're just glad to have you still with us. Thanks, Science Bob. Also, I just want to point out the fact that oh, it's like a loud car passing. Okay, good. I just want to point out the fact that so the importance of Corso and Italy. I'm really pushing that idea, that pin, because I've got it pinned. I'm asking others that are interested in this to pin that as well. I also want to point out the fact that in a timeline that I'm creating, it's interesting that Malgrim, and Corso are now, quite possibly crossing paths in 1960, 1961, 1962, 1963. These are some really important, bullet points. I would love to know if they had coffee, and then I can get in one of these time machines and go back and listen to them. To be a fly on the wall. Let's continue on.
But he was a strange man. Took the first nukes to Germany. I think I already mentioned that. And Eisenhower had him take them there. He knew the Kennedys very well. He knew the Reagan very well.
How much misinformation is in his book that he had to put in there just to keep the family safe?
10% is in the book, my dad said.
But I'm talking about misinformation. Is there any misinformation, do you think, in that book?
Yes, there's some misinformation, but it's mostly technicolor. It's what was put in the first two chapters. When people read the book, I tell them ignore it because you already know about the Roswell. Mr. Burns said, well, we have to put that in there because, and as far as being, some of the stuff in there, my dad there was never a legal done on the book with Simon & Schuster. There was personal family relationships there to get it through real quick. And my father never had a chance to proofread it, which very much upset him. So the book has not technical items in it. It's really not a book about UFOs, as you know. It's a book about government, and there's a lot more to be said about all of that.
So the editor.
So let's just bring that real quick around. I just want to remind everyone, based on what he also said earlier. So in his book about his life, Senior writes the day after, not the day after Roswell, but a book similar to that. And there's a small paragraph in there that talks about NHI and the phenomena. And George Knapp somehow sees this, reads this, and he's fascinated. And he's like, okay, you got to do this. And he kind of, encourages him to write this other type of book, but still about his life. And then he gets Burns involved. So if The Day After Roswell is written by Corso Sr., but it's with William J. Burns. And so the first two chapters, which I find actually really interesting, I actually highlighted a couple of things that I thought were, I went back and reread them and highlighted the things that I think that he that might have been the lie, because they always X-Files, there's the truth is hidden between two lies. So yeah, anyway, just to keep that in mind. Yeah, go ahead, Jay. Just
Oh, someone is asking when Corso Jr. stopped public speaking, if you knew.
I don't remember when he stopped. I don't know when he stopped public speaking. I know that it was in the O's that he did a so I believe his dad died, so his book was published in like 97, 98. And then Hal Puthoff and Kit Green made a visit to their house after the book was published. So that's in the timeline. We need to keep making sure we have those guys involved because they were. And then in the early O's, Corso Senior passes. That's when Corso Junior goes and does a lie, does his first interview where he does not talk about any of the stuff he's talking about now. And then I think maybe after that, I would have to follow back up with that. Go ahead, Jay. Just.
So you brought up Hal Puthoff, and he says that Hal Puthoff and others obviously came to talk to Corso to get some sort of background info on Roswell before he passed. Hal Puthoff apparently has the same idea that it's two timelines. Isn't that what Amy Eskridge said in her video? So I wonder if that came from Corso or from his own deductions or study.
I mean, I would say, looking at things right now, that's two sources. That's Hal Puthoff as a source, and that's Corso Jr. as a source. And I say that because Corso obviously had these experiences about time travel before he met with, Lightbringer. Let's bring you up. Hello, sir. How are you? Sorry, I see you. Added as a speaker. So I believe that I believe that there are two sources, and Amy might have gotten Amy might be a third source, or Amy got it from Hal Puthoff, which then aligns her with this as just pushing a second source. So I'm not sure yet, but they are in line for that. Lightbringer, how are you? Welcome, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to the table right now, or are you good for right now?
I would like to say that the information that you've been providing, Sarah, this documentary that you played for us, it's fantastic. I've come across this information, this assertion of that the ETs are us, that the people from the future are obviously that they're us. I haven't. I've heard him speak, but I haven't heard that full information drop, which was so I'm so grateful to have gotten that information drop, and it really puts a lot of the pieces together because I've been having experiences with light beings. I have everyday experiences with the light beings. They're in communication with me. I interdimensionally meditate. I use a very special form of Mao Shan Qigong, which allowed me after a year to open up my third eye, activate my chakras, activate the phoenix powers. These things are a science, so you could do it yourself too. I really believe that we're living in the time of signs and miracles. We're living in the time of revelation, where we don't need to do anything. You just need to look to your soul and remember the abilities that you gained in your past lives. That was another piece of the puzzle that was given to me. I'm standing to become a shaman. In the West, we don't have shaman. So I have to stand and become a shaman because there is no, you know, uh, shamanistic tradition here in the West. And so with these beings that have visited me, these experiences which I've had, these light beings, I'm told, and I believe now that they are us, these beautiful beings. Oh, they're so beautiful, guys. Beautiful blue Pleiadian, a beautiful Arcturian. My higher self, the mother father deity visited me. And they are
Lightning.
such beautiful beings, and they're us.
Yeah, Lightning, thank you so much, honestly, for what you're bringing to the table. I appreciate that. I do, before we get into the broader strokes of what we're talking about, I would like to continue on real quick. We'll go to Urs. I see we lost Brian, but we'll get Brian back up here.
Yeah, he couldn't hear, so I think he's recycling.
Yep,
And
he's recycling.
lightning, man, you're saying that there's no shamanic practices in the West? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, in terms of like Western people, not in terms of indigenous people. Of course, indigenous people have shamanic practices and they are wonderful. They are beautiful. I want an end to indigenous genocide. I'm saying that the people of the West who came here and who, took the land from the indigenous people. They did not have this shamanic tradition, and they should look to the indigenous people. They should look to the wisdom that was here before the Vatican showed up, before the papal bulls, before the genocide and the forced religious conversions, that we really got to support our indigenous brothers and sisters. I have so much love for our indigenous brothers and sisters because I really feel grateful that I am able to have any of this information that I've read. Is somebody an Osage shaman sent me some.
Lightning, I'm so sorry. I do have to cut you off there. I'm sorry. We have
Yes.
35 minutes left of this. I really want to get.
Sorry, guys.
No. I'm appreciative of you sharing. Thank you. That's very nice of you. Brian, you had your hand up. Did you have something quick to say?
Yeah, just real quick, just so you know, from what I hear, there is a push to get help put off to do more talking and open up a little bit more, um, just from my sources. And so perhaps that's why he went on Rogan. I thought that was a little more opening up, but I should hopefully, or we should all hopefully see help put off open up a little more in the coming years as he ages.
I love that. That's great. I'd love to have him in an X space. Let's see if we can make that happen.
Good luck.
I'll work some magic powers. We'll see what I'll call on the future beings and see if we can't get like Jack and Hal in a space together. That would be quite funny.
If you haven't been called a schmuck by Jack, you haven't lived.
I absolutely agree, wholeheartedly. Thank you. All right, cool. So again, 35 minutes left to go. I am going to take it back just a few seconds, just so we can remember where we were. And thanks, guys, for being here again. Yeah, let's do this.
With Simon & Schuster, there was personal family relationships there to get it through real quick. And my father never had a chance to proofread it, which very much upset him. So the book has not technical items in it. It's really not a book about UFOs, as you know. It's a book about government. And there's a lot more to be said about all of that.
So the editor added things. There was things added in that book. So when your dad got
Chris Corbin was the editor.
So did he add things in that shouldn't have been in there?
Pardon me?
Did he add things into the book that shouldn't have been added? Did he?
No, there was no legal done, no proofreading.
So when your dad first got the first copy, but I remember you saying that he yellowed marks.
Yeah. very upset.
But who made those mistakes in the book?
Who made the mistakes?
Yeah,
I'm not going to call them mistakes. I'm going to call them colorful metaphors.
And who put those in there?
Bill Burns.
And Bill Burns was?
The co-author.
That he met through George Knapp?
Yes.
And is Bill Burns still with?
Okay, so that's interesting. Just put a pin in that. So George Knapp has Bill Burns colorfully writing the first 2 chapters, which is where it's heavily lied in. And I highly recommend you just skim through those 2 chapters this evening and figure out what you think is. I've already circled what I think.
He's on Ancient Aliens and all that, you know. Bill Burns is a brilliant man, and I always thought he would be the next Steven Spielberg. Looks like he got caught up in the UFO thing rather than moving on. Before that, he was a horror story writer, as I understand it. Good man, though, very intelligent.
Absolutely.
He made the book profitable, even though my dad received no money from it. I own the rights, and we really still receive royalties. The new audio book has been put out by Bill Burns, which is brilliant, and it has information in it that's not in the book.
Where did that information come from?
Me. Yeah.
Did you work with Bill to make the audio version?
And afterwards, Bill Burns, talked to my father quite a bit during the time that the book was released. So there's a time capsule buried in Roswell. It's very important for my sons to be there in 50 years, all 3 sons, when it's opened.
Do you know where it is?
Sure. It's right outside the Goddard Museum.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Very important for my sons to be there during the opening. I don't know what's in it. Wish I did, because I won't be there. Probably.
Well,
unless I'm 100 and something years
old.
old.
Don't always last that long, do we? That's the problem.
I don't want to last that long.
Well, I'm grateful for you being here right now. There's so much we could say about the book. So okay, what you just said there as well. There's only 10% of the information in that the book is about that contains the information that your dad had. How much more information do you have that could be released to make more books?
Wow, never thought of that one. I don't know how to answer that.
But there is more material you've got.
Yeah, but I have a hard time sometimes separating what I think I know and from what my dad told me or is in the book. So is there more information?
But there's the black bag in there.
There's the black bag in there that my father gave it to Paula Harris, and he said this is very important. The black bag has been pilfered, though.
Has it been published? What was in there?
No. The EB thing I showed you, how he's made, came from the John Hopkins Review. My father said that's true because they never would have known about the eyelid release. The cover in the eye. That was the night vision that he held up in the book.
But that Eben thing I read in that room, is that your dad's notes?
Yes, personally.
Yeah.
No.
Let's just say about the Eben, that this was a biological entity that could go past the radiation belts. And that
made to travel in space.
Made to travel. These bodies were made to travel in space that were in this craft.
Yeah, they had two brains, not 2 hemispheres like we have. One brain is laced with integrated circuits to feed back the information. The other one lets them run as a ET or as a.
So they were part of the craft.
Yeah. They're part of the craft. That's where the head device came from.
So who made these? Us from the future?
Well, I'm not going to answer that at this time.
Okay, really quick, just a couple of things I want to point out. One is that he brings up Johns Hopkins, and I pulled up my Malgram notes really quickly because I think it's important that I was calling important ufology schools, and with those, I just want to point out that John Hopkins, Matthew Pines, Dr. Powell, Dr. Eamon Hillman, Dr. Anna Brady, who organized the Eco Systematic Futures podcast with Hal and others. Her name is Dr. Anna Brady Estevez. She did 1 year in Yale and then to Johns. Laszlo also currently teaches there. Eric Davis is MIT. Cornell is Avi. Nolan. So just some of the things that I've been also looking into is just where do the current people have gone to school, and then looking at past people who have also gone to school. And then another thing I wanted to clarify was that it was Harold Milgram that stated that Corso Sr. served as the high-ranking officer in Italy during the post-World War II period, which meant in Italy, post-World War II, which that's the time period of the 1933 Magenta craft would have been brought over. He was also the personal liaison to the future Pope. He was also a Knight of Malta. And as to just remind you, you have at that time period, it wasn't until the 90s that they decided to take this away. You had to be of noble heritage or bloodline or some such. And then he was also a main figure in the Operation Paperclip. And he helped create the rat lines, so anyway, I don't know what that note means. I'm sorry. But just to throw those out there really quickly. Brian, go ahead.
Yes, well done, Sarah. You are 100% correct. There's a there. And anybody that's got any more info on this with the Italian/Vatican connection, I would love to hear more of it, because once again, this interview came out before Gresh came out with the Magenta Italy crash, stuff like that. I've done my own research on the Victor Alien interview, and that's got Vatican connections, which we can go over after Corso's interview. But 100% with what Malgrim came out, changed the game, and it connected a lot more dots. And I really hope, I know there's probably people on here listening that are probably anonymous. I would encourage you to come up um, and go ahead and say something. But anyways, you're right on, Sarah.
Yes, please. If you're listening anonymous and you want to be just part of the conversation, more than welcome. You can see we're all very civil here, very respectful people. Urs, I see your hand up, and then we'll head back to it.
Yeah, just going back to when he says that these Ebens had two brains, and then he goes on to say, like, one brain is laced with integrated circuits and the other one lets them run as ET integrated into the ship, the ships that are alive, right? And then also going back to that these Ebens were built to go past the radiation belt. So they're saying that as of now, humans can't go past that. Is that what they're implying? And then, just there's so much info here. And then, like when they say, like, who made these, who built these, is it us from the future? Well, I'm not going to answer that at this time. That is he also implying that, we live in multiple timelines? I mean, could this be us from different universes, right? And there's so much to think about. I get so excited talking about it. Sorry.
No, as do I. And Brian, if you could remind me, what was the name of the? I'm gonna look for it. There's John Strader went to Contact in the Desert last year, and he spoke with two gentlemen who I'm gonna find and confirm with you guys. And one of the questions was, like, what could possibly prove that? How do we prove to the public that that the craft is real? And he said something along the lines of the technology inside of it. So I'm putting a pin in that, just like, again, another step, another pin for that. Okay, we'll keep on going. We have less than a half an hour. Oh, so sad. Our time is short with him. Hold on one second.
We've talked about the future, what it is, and the way that I see it. Once you see it my way, you have information.
Do we become them, maybe?
No, I don't think so.
No.
It's strictly a ET.
Well,
Not just an extra large bomb, but a IA.
Well, We're saying they're from the future. Who's to say they wasn't from the past?
Well, of course, it's one and the same, as I told you. That's the way I see it. Icons. You send the ship back.
It's like something kind of, you see these drawings, and I don't know if I got this right, from like Atlantean kind of ideas.
Look at the picture up there. It's a whale.
Yeah.
Is it not a starfish?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean
no
stingray.
But what I'm saying is, what if this was from Atlantis, sent from the past into the future? But then that would make no sense. Would it?
Atlantis, not the past.
No.
It's the future.
It's the future. Okay. Yeah. Just tell me about when your dad got this box of technology from the Roswell incident. I mean, he's talked about a filing cabinet.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, was it a filing cabinet, or was that just Dad's way of saying, as an analogy of
No,
what
it was a file cabinet that was stored away and lost for years in the basement of the Pentagon. General Trudeau knew about it. And he says, I'm having it delivered to your office. He said, here's my dad's words. General Trudeau said, Colonel, now Freeman criticized my dad before he went into the R&D job because he had just come back from Germany as Inspector General over there and bringing the first nukes to the 552 Missile Battalion. And my dad was in a holding pattern because he was only in Annapolis there in the Guard, National Guard, and he was in a holding pattern until General Trudeau could bring him aboard. So when General Trudeau brought him aboard, he says, Corso, are you aboard? And my dad told me later that he knows what that meant. It meant this stuff. And they actually was in a file cabinet down in the basement, stored away, lost. Nothing done with it. And that's why my father says a lot of the technology that came from this is still down there somewhere, not being used. But the Air Force may have it, my father said.
Do you think they still have the bodies? Because I heard that the bodies they disintegrated pretty badly.
Yeah.
But do you think they still got them on ice in some form?
I don't know. I can only tell you about the Pentagon story that my father told me. There's a room that you go into like a jail cell. You take no computer, no writing, no anything to record with. Whatever's in your memory, you can come out and they will answer it. I see it as a alien, but it could be a computer. I don't know what it is. He never said. But he says he comes out of that room and all knowledge is there. It's like an oracle, I guess.
Which could have come from this craft or some other craft.
Yeah. Or from an entity. I don't know.
Why
would it be a jail cell? Keep people from going in or coming out? I don't know.
Well, absolutely. And was there a survivor on this crash?
I don't know. My father never really got into the detail of the crash itself. He went to the site afterwards.
We did.
Yeah, he was brought to the site. And in fact, during the Roswell 50th anniversary, they asked my dad, is it this site or this site? He says, well, here's the one I came to with the military afterwards.
Because the crash was 10 years apart because it was a time travel ship. Part of it crashed in 1947, and the other crash was, which one was that? That was Corona, which
the other parts.
10 years later.
Yeah.
And is that verifiable in some? That's I guess.
That's verifiable.
That's verifiable. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it goes deep. My father at that time was in White Sands, New Mexico, preparing the 552 Missile Battalion to take the nukes overseas, and he was there during the Corona part, and they had taken the radars and moved them down to pencil beam. And from that, the first particle weapons were developed, which is still in White Sands. And we went to the museum, and the director of the museum was really amazed that my father was there and showed him the first particle weapon, which my dad helped develop and helped develop Star Wars with Reagan. Or actually, Reagan called him and said, you see, the Cold War was not necessarily about the Cold War. It was about planetary infiltration from others. They were destabilizing our military bases, our nukes, and such like that. And not to go into another story, but that was a planetary defense system.
So when we look at what's going on with Russia now,
Okay, so really quickly, this to me lines up with Stephen Bassett has a gentleman whose name I forget, who is the witness to them turning off the nukes at an airfield.
Are
I'm
you
sorry,
talking
at
about
an
Salas? No.
yes.
Also, the
Yes.
guy you were talking about before was Hynek. That was Hynek's son.
No. It wasn't Hynek. It was actually Michael Schatt, and
Oh
he
yeah,
said
him.
that crash retrievals is going to be disclosure because of the instrument. I just found that, but thanks, Jay. Just uh, so yes, sorry, train of thought. Going
But he
back,
also
yes,
said he said something about they it was a defense system. He's claiming it was a defense system, not for other humans, but for other NHI. So he is saying that they were infiltrating their bases, like the same stories we hear all the time. You know.
yes, agreed.
Hmm.
Like it's
So that's
like
a
a
point to bring out. He does say that there.
yes, he absolutely does. You're absolutely right. It's definitely another pin. It's another point. It's another note. Um, Again, it's source material. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. One thing with Robert Salas, I've had a chance to talk with him privately and publicly. And one of the things that was uh, when those nukes on the U.S. side were turned off, the part that they disabled was called the logic coupler. I think we heard John Ramirez talk about this. I ran up to him recently just to confirm this, and it was right beneath the nose cone. So you got some energy weapon or some laser or whatever, and that can go beneath the blasting door. Everything else is the heavily shielded item. This is the guidance system, and when they bench tested that, it had negative voltage, not positive voltage, but negative voltage. So something can take energy out via laser or light or whatever they're using, and so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because that jives with what you guys are just bringing up.
Thank you. No. Awesome. I love it. We're adding to this is the reason why I love doing this, because it's like we're all adding to this. Anyone in the community, you've got something to add, you don't want to come up on the panel, send a DM to Urs, Brian, or myself, or jump up on the panel and add it in real quick. Again, we have Robert, go for it.
I
Welcome.
just, sure. I just wanted to add that the Harold Malgrim interview with Jesse Michaels, he mentioned that some of the aerospace companies are in northern Italy to this day. And that was something I was unaware of. And I think a lot of other people are unaware of, that some of the most advanced aerospace companies are in northern Italy. That's kind of a secret to me. I wasn't aware of that. I'm aware of Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, all those, you know, companies, but not northern Italy. So I wonder if maybe, that time travel research is continuing in northern Italy to this day, just adding to the Philip Corso connection.
Thank you. Chan, do you have something to add real quick?
Yeah, just to add on to what they said about the Northern Italy, isn't it fascinating that 2025 years ago we changed to this artificial time, and maybe this weapon is also a time a weapon, that it discombobulated our understanding of what the natural understanding of time is, and we got lost in time, and we went on to a weird place. We're getting back to the natural understanding of what time and time travel and telepathy is landed.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And Robert, also, I didn't get to that part yet in the Malgrim interview. I'm only 2 hours in. I will get there. Where he talks about northern Italy, and or maybe I missed it. I don't think so. But interesting, because that's also what the Magenta crash happened there. That's where they met with the Nazis.
Absolutely. Do you think the Italians learned about time travel and they didn't continue their own research? Of course not. They continued it themselves.
Yeah, no, 100% with you, especially because now I'm going to confuse some sourced material that I found, but especially because the Nazis, yeah, I'm not going to go into that yet. I don't have the best notes and my memory's a little rough. Let's continue on.
Hey, Seth, We're not hearing
Yeah,
anything
we're not hearing anything, Sarah.
on your end.
Oh, sorry. The mute button. It's okay. I was bringing it back a few seconds so that we could catch up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got this. I got this. All right, we're good. We're good.
And moved them down to pencil beam. And from that, the first particle weapons were developed, which is still in White Sands. And we went to the museum, and the director of the museum was really amazed that my father was there and showed him the first particle weapon, which my dad helped develop and helped develop Star Wars with Reagan. Or actually, Reagan called him and said, "You see, the Cold War was not necessarily about the Cold War. It was about planetary infiltration from others. They were destabilizing our military bases, our nukes, and such like that. And not to go into another story, but that was a planetary defense system."
So when we look at what's going on with Russia now, with the allegations against Russia of hacking and everything else, is that just a bit of?
Well, the ETs, my dad told me the Berlin Wall was going to come down years before it did because the Russians have violated an ET mandate. First of all, we were told to stay out of space. That's why we didn't go back to the moon for many years. We weren't ready.
Okay, put a pin in that real quick. We remember let me remind you, Giorgiani says there's Nordics on the dark side of the moon, and also tells the story of the remote viewer that remote viewed there. Now, many remote, Ingo Swann remote viewed there. Yuri Gell, a bunch of people remote viewed the dark side of the moon. But it just to remind you that it was this one person who did remote view the dark side of the moon. He did it one too many times. They told him don't come back. He came back, and his projectoral body, his consciousness is stuck there. His body is actually apparently in a coma in a installation here in the United States, being safely protected. So the same story comes from also John Ramirez, point two. And John Ramirez states that it's reptilians, not Nordics on the dark side of the moon. Same story with the remote viewer. We were told not to come back. I asked John Ramirez in that space, about this, and he said China can go there. So China, for some reason, is allowed to go on the dark side of the moon, but the United States is not. So it's quite interesting. I just want to throw that out there. We'll continue. Oh, go ahead, Earth.
Isn't it interesting how he says that the Cold War wasn't mainly about what we thought it was about, that it was about, way like something else out of a sci-fi movie, right? And, like these things were destabilizing our military bases. And so if we had a planetary defense system at that time, does that mean we have it now? I mean, how far have we come if they even had particle weapons? And the fact that the Russians violated and were told to close their program, it's so interesting, right? That would make a good movie.
Absolutely. Cafetero, do you have something real quick to say, and then we'll get back to it?
Just a couple references. One is with regards to the Cold War not being what it's about. I think there was an interview with William, what's his name? God, what's his name?
What?
Tompkins. William Tompkins, who mentioned that. And also there was most of you big fans who've heard the interview with one of the astronauts, the one with the heavy southern accent, is really hard to understand. There was an interview with him, and then some young guy who was the son of a person in the military who was disappointed because he never saw his dad, and one day his dad got drunk and spilled the beans and told his son he was working on a particle weapon. I'm not trying to find it. I find that video posted in the chat thing there on the bottom right.
That's awesome. Yes, and if you could remember those three names and quite possibly either put it in a post on, underneath this space, or you could even just DM me. I would love to have them as extra sources as well going forward. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, continuing on.
Second of all, do not put nukes in space. My dad said the Russians violated that, put nukes in space, and they were told to close. They didn't fail, they were told to close. I know, fantastic, isn't it?
Well, Yeah, I mean, and again, when you was a child, these fantastic calls would come in from high rank. I mean, you never took the calls, did you? From some of these famous, like the presidents that were called your dad up. You just know that your dad told you that he took some of these calls at home sometimes in his career.
Oh, he was always, even in his retirement, he was always behind the scene with the president, most presidents, but not all.
But were you aware of that?
Oh, yes. I saw him stand at attention when Reagan would call in my business, he would stand up and say, yes, sir, and salute, even though he was on the phone, of course.
Did you think that was normal?
Yeah. I knew he was involved in a lot.
But not exactly.
As a boy, I knew he was involved in a lot.
Are you adding
J. Edgar Hoover called my dad a rat. He hated him.
Are you adding anything to your dad's story that wasn't there originally? Are you trying to fill in pieces so that it makes sense for you?
My dad's story?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strangest man I ever knew.
But you're not adding anything extra that shouldn't be in it, just so that it makes more sense for people to listen to.
Yeah.
This is the story as you know it.
As I know it.
As you know it. So
I never knew my father to tell a lie or exaggerate, because an intelligence officer is taught not to do that.
Right.
He's a nothing. He's just a recorder that's bringing back the information. That's all. Not to exaggerate it, not to give a political view on it, not to give his view on it.
When he gave, we never knew whether there was an actual live entity that was taken away at the crash.
It says in the front of the book that one came over the hill and we shot it and all that.
We don't know yet. Right. Okay.
But that wasn't my dad saying that.
No, of course not.
That's the Hollywood.
And when when you listen to the old interviews with Art Bell, when, for example, there was a liquid gel that the beings were kept in.
Not in
the
those
crate.
days. We didn't have that technology. Anybody can see through that.
But your dad
in
your dad had to keep to some story of what was in the book so that the book wouldn't.
My dad was 75 years old, easily influenced by the money that was told it was coming his way, which he never got a penny of. And he was easily influenced. He said, this is the way books are written. He was a virgin at it. I always told him he would never be paid. I knew it because I was a businessman. I ran businesses for years, and I know when somebody is not going to pay you.
Yeah. But he had to go along with some things in the book, even though he probably didn't want to go along with them because they'd already been printed and there was no way of changing it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's quite sad, isn't it?
It's very sad.
Yeah.
So against his grain. That's why he sat down and did the yellow.
Right, to the first copy he's got, but we don't have that copy of that book with the yellow.
Oh,
it might be somewhere.
It was a paperback.
Right, but when he took this technology to companies from the camera, he must have had to look high and low for companies that were kind of close, so it wouldn't just seem like it came out of the blue.
Yeah, absolutely. Harris Labs up here did quite a bit of work just in Melbourne, up the road here.
Where are these original parts that were given, do you think?
Well, they remember, they didn't give the parts out. It even says that in the book. No. They gave the money and the allocation for them to develop in that direction.
But did no one get to see?
They gave them information, though, about the parts. Okay? The military had the parts. The Army had the parts. Research and development had the parts. Now, if they began to flounder, my dad said, or not develop, then the part would be introduced and taken back.
Right. But
no paper trail. They didn't want a paper trail.
The people that were given this delicate, information, they must have known it was from somewhere else.
Of course they did. Of course. That's why when the book was written, we had all these scientists come to the house. They said, we knew, we suspected, we knew, that there was something going on. Between 1960 and 1963, the world took off in development.
When did your dad give the kind of bits to the companies that they were working with? I mean, what?
60 to 63.
60 to 63.
Yeah. All the companies that answered to my dad, 50 companies answered to him 25 years later. Now, what companies, anyway, it's in the other books, I guess. What companies would answer a man writing a book 50 years later and say, yes, we remember you? What companies would do that if it wasn't true? all 50 companies that they put the artifacts into and the development answered my father, and it's in the book.
When you say answered, who made the call? The book.
My dad did.
Your dad called them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these people would have been retired by then, would they?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They answered him. The companies answered him.
Do you think that's still going on in Silicon Valley right now?
Yeah, well, no, it's going on within the. It's going on. I'm having trouble with this book. I'd have to go get another one. It has the 50 companies in the front that answered him. They're not here. Anyway, I have the books. Oh, that's a John Glenn book. No wonder.
Wow. Here's the book.
That's stupid.
No, it's all right. Don't worry, Tori.
Oh, I was going crazy there.
Yeah, I know, right? We changed realities.
Yeah. All of a sudden, time travel got involved. Here they are. Yeah. There's all your companies, and they all answered to my father. Or at least the people remaining there answered them. They have record of it. Still have record of it. On the other page, too. Now, why would they answer my father?
How did they answer him? What were the answers like?
We remember you, and yes, yes, we remember the allocations are here to every one of these companies. If you search their records, came in from R&D to do the work. That's available.
That's still in their books.
Yeah.
From all those years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Maybe Mr. Freeman should miss this page, I think, and some of the others.
Okay, so you don't think that's still going on in Silicon Valley now? That parts are being,
I don't know,
siphoned in?
I don't know.
I mean, we've made more technological jumps in this century than any other century of our existence.
Of course. I told you what Father said, exponentially.
Exponentially.
We can do anything.
This century as well.
He said we had caught that technology years ago. This was back when my father was still alive, 20 years ago. And he said we had caught that technology, all but biology.
But was this self-sacrifice to us for us to help ourselves, do you think?
I believe that.
To make it look like it was a crash, to give us the free will of, oh, what's this? Let's see.
No, it just crashed. Two accidents.
But if this was free will, if this was gifted to us, how can it be a crash? It was going to land somewhere?
Purpose crash.
That's what I'm saying. It was a purpose crash.
Yeah, of course.
For it to make it look like whoever sent it didn't do
Yeah, you can have the thing land there and then the little ETs get out and say, I'm from your future to help you. No.
That's not good. We wouldn't have believed that.
No.
We would have seen it as a negative thing.
Yeah.
But they self-sacrificed themselves.
Are they self? I don't know. Only God can answer that. They're grown. They're clones. Is a clone, if they made a clone of you, does it have a soul? I don't know. Only God knows that.
Okay, just to take a brief breath right that one right there. I'm going to hit play in a second. Urs, go ahead.
This part was very, very interesting, where he says that they, do they sacrifice themselves? And this, I think we've talked about this a few times in the past few weeks where where we've said, or I've said that, could that have changed? Could mankind have gone a different route if they didn't hide this tech, right? And then he goes on to say, like, they keep coming back. Is it to change the future? Is it to change other timelines? So that part's really, really interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And then the idea that my mind is I actually forgot this part just because it's so end of the thing, you know what I mean? And then it hits you and it's like slap in the face. And it makes me think of the Matilda McElroy. Now, again, you guys, I don't know what's real and what's not real, but Matilda McElroy was the supposed Roswell nurse who had the alien interview where she talked telepathically with the sole surviving entity from there. And at the very end, they kind of like it was done with the interviewing and now it was going to be interrogation. And they went after the entity in the room, and then Matilda was let go. But months later, she gets a telepathic message from the entity stating, Matilda's like, "Were you okay?" And the entity was like, "Yes, I got out of there before they were, interrogating me." Which, like, let's say that was true or something like that did happen. That would make sense in the stuff that we are slowly piecing together right now. I don't know if that's true, but it's an interesting puzzle piece to throw out there. Okay, right back to it. Guys, we have like 15 minutes left. I did rewind it just a tad so that we didn't lose our spot. Appreciate everyone going through this. I am so excited to discuss this in more depth. Okay.
Well, if,
Two accidents.
but if this was free will, if this was gifted to us, how can it be a crash? It was going to land somewhere?
Purpose crash.
That's what I'm saying. It was a purpose crash.
Yeah, of course.
For it to make it look like whoever sent it didn't do
Yeah, you can have the thing land there and then the little ETs get out and say, "I'm from your future to help you." No.
That's not good. That we wouldn't have believed that.
No.
We would have seen it as a negative thing.
Yeah.
But they self-sacrificed themselves.
Are they self? I don't know. Only God can answer that. They're grown. They're clones. Is a clone, if they made a clone of you, does it have a soul? I don't know. Only God knows that. Pretty deep, huh? Mind-blowing. Try living with it.
How did you live with it?
I don't. We put it away until right now.
Why am I here?
Well, I don't need to answer that. You know. You know within yourself without an answer. Is that an answer? I'm not being cruel, I hope.
No, that's an answer.
Yeah,
That's
you can
an
answer that.
That's it. Yeah.
You're not here just to do what we're doing now, and you know that. There's more to it.
I know that.
You're a very understood, very deep mental person, and I knew that. But I put you off in the beginning because I was very upset, and I'm still very upset at some of these so-called ufologists. They're leading us down a path that they don't know anything.
Right. Let's end this topic on that, because that's a great place to take it to, because this community is split now. I know you're not keeping up now with ufology,
I'm
right?
not.
You've done the talks, you've done the conferences years ago, right? So now you've got a lot of the secret space program stuff. Are there bases in Antarctic? Are there, bases with this kind of stuff in there? Do you think?
Absolutely.
You think there could be?
Yeah.
There's bases.
Look at the Black Knight,
So you would say, in your truth, you would say there's potential bases which maybe are, storing stuff like this or this.
Okay, so really quickly, I want to bring up the secret space program, which also is talked about with other people as well, other sourced material. I believe Amy Eskridge briefly talks about it in her Zoom. It was released after her death. That's a fascinating thing. There's other people that talk about it too. And also, I just want to do a little woo woo woo. Corey Good's name is about to come up. Nobody freak out. It's okay. We will get through this together. It's a brief moment. I just want to make sure no one gets triggered accidentally. Okay.
For military eyes only, whatever they're doing. Do you think we're in contact with these beings, or we're in contact with extraterrestrials?
I know we are. My father had contact, and he's incapable of telling a lie. Of course.
And what did they say?
What they said, my father asked one of them, he had his gun, he was in a cave, like many times happens, told me as a young man, I can remember him saying very strange place, but he never mentioned ET being in there. And he drew a picture of the ET that was in there. And he asked him if he was friendly or enemy. And he said, neither. And he says, well, what are you here for? And he says, a new world if you can take it. And I've mentioned that before. And that is, in fact, I understand that may have been adapted into the UN as a greeting.
So it may not have been a cave. It may just his way of. It's
may
not a cave.
have been.
I mean, a cave doesn't make any sense, does it? Or let's just go in a cave, and that's going to be. Do you know what I mean? This
mysterious place or caves.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But this probably wasn't a cave.
Right.
This was probably somewhere much more formal.
Could be
a new world, and a new world could be where they've come from. Maybe, but the Eben that he spoke to, where did it? Was it from the future?
There is no future.
No.
To answer your question,
was it from another parallel universe?
That's the answer. Because my father said it was one on the ground. He was flying back in the puddle jumper from White Sands to El Paso, actually from Red Canyon. He developed that on his own because they didn't want to know that the nukes were in White Sands. So he developed that on his own. They went up there and they fired. They had the first 12-foot-12 shot, took them to Europe and such. And it was like the Dirty Dozen. These were all rejects. And my father took them in and made them number one. So that's another story. But he would fly there in this little puddle jumper, and he saw a bright, shiny object on the ground. So he got in one of the big Jeeps, like staff cars, and drove back there. And he says he sees this thing sitting on the ground, and it's going in and out of time. It's going, disappears, comes back. And he says, am I delusional? What the hell is it? So he says he throws a tumbleweed underneath of it. When the thing comes back, disappears again, the tumbleweed's all smashed, so he knew it was real. He sees these little footprints in my hair sees these little footprints in the sand. And all of a sudden, he goes into a panic. And he flies backwards, get in the staff car and flies backwards again. He says, all of a sudden, the thing goes like this and disappears into a donut.
Why did he have that experience?
I don't know. There was no communication, no nothing.
But why that experience? Is that to show him?
I don't know.
No, and do you think,
I don't think maybe it wasn't meant for him.
Do you think
maybe it was an accident?
If he had been regressed and something else, do you think there was an implant in memory that actually something else happened then?
Yeah, I can't answer that right now.
No.
Not right now.
No. Okay. So they are, but how much control do they have over society? Do you think of where we are now?
Well, I believe there's 5 levels of control.
Where are they in their levels?
Before God.
So they are in and above the military.
Yeah, the great military complex, the secret society or the bankers, and then the one you're taught in school, which is.
But obviously, most research is about the nuts and bolts. When you was in the UFO community, the research was much about nuts and bolts, right? Now that's gone to more of consciousness-based research, right? So
that's because we're learning. If I may interrupt, that's because we're learning more about the universe. We're learning more and more and more and more. And as we learn more about the universe, we realize how much the mental ability goes into it because of what we don't know, how magnificent it is.
Right. And do you think it's teeming with life out there?
Oh, absolutely. We know that.
But
we know that now.
But again, they're not coming here to say, hey, they're
part of the consciousness.
Yeah, we're part of them, they're part of us.
This is an embryo, the Earth, and it's growing. Okay? And as it grows, more and more elements come, unupinium, more things become available. Are we not ready yet to join the community? I don't know.
But they say that when Roswell happened, there was an attraction for them to come because that's when the atomic.
But my dad knew Olbert real well, father of the atomic bomb, real well, very well. And you know what he says? People don't know about this. When there's an atomic explosion, you see the mushroom crowd come up, right? Well, that's only part of the energy. They all know he figured out that the rest of the energy goes down through the Earth, through the center, into another dimension. And that's what they're excited about. Energy that into another dimension that doesn't belong there. The atomics, when you measure the energy, it's only part of what should be yielded.
If they were from our future trying to evolve us in a way, right? What's that good?
Another dimension, not future. Another dimension. Well, you could call the future a dimension, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about M theory, multiple dimensions.
But if they're us from the future, say if we said in this interview, maybe they sacrificed themselves so that we would gain this technology for us to evolve, which makes them evolve.
possibility.
Why are they then, if we're then saying, well, because the atomic bomb went off, then they're like, oh, look at the kids have got matches. Let's go see them. That's a different theory for why they crashed then.
Yeah. I'm not exactly following you.
Well, look, no, I'm saying if when we had the atomic bomb, it was like, oh, the kids have got matches.
Yes.
Right. If they came back to see us because they came here to observe us, now we've got the matches. That's a different reason for them coming here to sacrifice themselves to give this technology to us.
Right.
Which one's true?
Without the technology, though, you may not be able to control that energy.
So it came at that time because that's when it was meant to come. Right.
Could be. I don't know that. I'm just
going
brainstorming.
Back, no, absolutely. Going back to where the UFO research, there's many UFO researchers out there, and they've all got their niche, and they've all got their own truth agenda, their own agenda. That's a better way of saying it. And then you've got, there's so many agendas, and then people listening to this will say, well, this is, you and your dad's agenda is this, right? So who do they listen to? Is it the discernment inside they listen to?
I'm not out. I have the book here because we still get royalties from it, and that's great. Do I need them? No. Does many of the people out there, all you got to do is follow the money on every one of the researchers. Follow the money, and you will see if they're telling the truth or not. It's that simple. And most of them, I don't go to the conferences anymore. I go about every 4 or 5 years just to see if there's a change. There have been no change.
What change would you?
Okay, really quick. Sorry. Get ahead, Urs.
Oh, Brian had his hand up, and I was trying to get you to see that. But I guess I'll go after if he has anything to say.
I do not
And
see
Jay
Brian.
also has her hand up, so she can go after Brian. I'll go after them.
Why don't you just, because I think the interview is getting close, and I've got a few things after the interview to bring up, if that's okay. Go ahead, Justin.
Well, I just wanted to point out there that he is saying, not only is he saying there's NHI, but he's saying there's multiple timelines. So we have to keep that in consideration, that there might be different kinds of NHI at different times, or different things coming to visit because of the multiple timelines. So
I just said, we said that. You're right.
And if I could just add one more thing, Jay, just what's to think that there's 1 or 2 parallel timelines? What if there's a billion parallel timelines? What if you are in your own timeline? Every one of us is in our own parallel timeline. I can't prove this with math or physics. I'm sure Jack Sephardi could come on here and put me in my place, but that's an interesting thing to think about. Why not just 1 or 2? Why not a billion, 10 billion?
Well, there might be physics behind that can either rule that out or make it true. Right?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Just really quick, while we're sorry, talking about this, actually, remind me. I will bring it up later. But this. What if, Brian? Please remind me. There's only about 5 minutes left. I would really like to just shoot through that, if you guys don't mind, and then remind me about this. We all have our own timelines. I have a certain source material I can present. Just a brief little statement from that. It'll be quite interesting. But let's just rush right up. Get through this. We only have.
I've got that written down, Sarah, and we'll run through this. Yep.
Okay, cool. Because I can't wait to hear what you have to say too, and Urs and Robert, Darren, you guys, the rest of the panel. We'll get into this. Let's just finish up the last 5 minutes.
And just real quick, sir, just one more thing. I apologize. If there's anybody down there that's listening anonymously or anything else that wants to come up and talk, please do. This is a great group. We can kick even myself out or anybody else and just leave it with you and Sarah. If anybody wants to talk, you're more than welcome to come up, and we will kick all of us out, including myself. So.
Yes, absolutely. And I just, because I know we're going to jump into this, I do want to give a warm shout out to Kevin Moore for getting Corso to sit down and do this interview 6 years ago. Fascinating. I am absolutely personally forever grateful. This has been a fantastic source to move from, and it has made my days more interesting. So I'm very appreciative. All right, 5 minutes. Here we go. Oh no. We're good. Don't worry. I'm hitting play.
And most of them, I don't go to the conferences anymore. I go about every 4 or 5 years just to see if there's a change. There have been no change.
What change would you like to see?
Truth?
Whose truth?
Well, not from them. Not from them. But a truth that there is more to our existence than just looking for money, looking for fame, looking for, other things that humans look for. And what I would like to see out here is that, first of all, that my father is truth. Not all of it in here. Some of it's been fantasized. But I'd like to see the truth of what's in that black bag over there. That was my father's legacy that has been left. Because I believe without that legacy, the earth might be a different place right now. What if the technology is true in here that's been given? What if it had never been given? Where would we be?
Where would we be?
My father says 200 years behind. We would not have this conversation. He's 200 years advancement.
Or more?
Yeah, and they said, can we handle it? General Trudeau, my dad never knew the answer. They were afraid of it. They were afraid that technology might be misused. My father would lay there in the hospital dying, and he would tell people that machine is because of me. They thought my father was delusional, but he's telling the truth. Yeah. Now, it hurts me to see people go against this, but I understand it. It has to be. Because for the truth to come out, you have to have the other side. There has to be the conflict. The earth is a place of conflict, as we all know, and it has to be there.
Is there inner earth beings?
Very, very, I don't know.
I only ask that because I'm interviewing Corey Good soon. I'm like,
there had to be, in my opinion, there had to be a model for the EB. I would think there had to be a model.
Right, that's interesting. That's an interesting answer.
And we have his DNA. We've had it for a long time.
Whose DNA? Oh, yes.
Since 1947 or before, even some crashes, we've had his DNA. But we didn't know it was DNA then, did we?
No.
But now we do.
Well, what's happening with that DNA now, I wonder?
You can grow them. I know they've been grown, but that's another story.
Okay.
They're growing right now.
We're coming to the end of this interview here. You've given us more than enough time right now, and I really appreciate it. This has been one of my most fascinating interviews recently. What last message would you like to give the audience?
Have an open mind. Don't believe everything that you hear or see. Most of us strive to move forward, but we have to remember one thing. God created us all equal. And the differences between us, every race, is only a fraction. But we strive as human beings to perpetuate that tiny difference. And it ends up in war. It ends up in all types of conflict. The earth does not have to be a place of conflict. And if you just believe in some of this, not the technology part, not the UFO part, but there are other realms that maybe would like to see us survive. The Drake equation, how many destroyed themselves? How many societies? We don't have to destroy ourselves. Take a look at that difference and realize what it is. We all want the same thing. We want our children to grow better than us.
And could you say, just ending this as well, someone else is, when we talk about, you talked about there's other realities, but could there be many other realities?
I believe so.
Many other Earths?
I believe so.
Us doing this in some other form, but the same timeline, but doing it a little bit differently?
The ripple.
Yep.
If this one goes to hell, it affects the others. And that's what the atomic explosions we were talking about a minute ago. If they take place in partially the energy in another dimension, the ripple.
And what does that energy do to other dimensions that don't? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it changes things, right?
Yeah.
Well, look, Phil, Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
My mind a little bit, right?
It's not easy. It's not easy, and you can easily trick yourself into believing things that aren't true. I understand that. Perpetual liars, and such like that. But it does hurt me that some of these people out there can't come down to earth and realize that it is, in my opinion, a benevolent universe. Thank you. You're very welcome. Come again.
All right. So that was that. You guys, so excited to share this with you. I've been looking forward to this for a really long time. We'll go to Urs, and then Brian, and I know you, Urs and Brian, you guys have thoughts and questions and want to have some really good things to discuss. I do too, but let's hit you guys up first, and it'll give me a few minutes to just mute my phone.
Go ahead first. You can go first.
Okay. He says that, we've, worked to 200 years, where we're supposed to be. And if we didn't have that tech, we would be like 200 years in the past, right? So that comes back to, we've only used parts of whatever it is that they gave us, at the time, when Roswell happened. Imagine if they had said, we have NHI here on Earth, we have their technology, instead of hiding it. I wonder how much, that would have integrated into our civilization and our society from then to here. I think we would have been even more than 200 years that he's talking about, right? Like, that's where I kind of think like maybe they should have said that we're here. And that's where I think also comes back to they've come back multiple times to try to fix, I think, what is, the ripples in this multiverse that we live in. I just want to add to that.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to bring up a few quick points. So if you could all indulge me for 1 minute or two, I'm going to try and make this really quick. One, thank you, Sarah, for putting this on. This is amazing. I happened to jump into your test space, and that's how we got this together. And I also want to thank Kevin Moore, by the way, for that great interview. I thought he did a great job with Corso Jr. Um, just real quick, and then we'll get to everybody's hands, and everybody that wants to jump up can jump up. Um, just my points going through the interview. One is, how many other deathbed confessions are there that we haven't heard? I think that, that would be interesting, but we're never going to hear the answer on it, unfortunately. He brought up earlier in the interview the underlying economy, and I almost wonder, and I'm not trying to get political here, if Trump's trying to get a stable economy so that he doesn't have another COVID-19 thing on his hands, so that he could hopefully release it. Now that could be wishful thinking, but you want to have a stable economy, and whether you think that he's going about it the right way or the wrong way, I really don't care. But maybe that's what he's trying to do. Okay, and that's something that he brought up earlier in the interview. Um, Number three, he brought up the one crap that disappeared into a donut, and I don't think he used the word donut flippantly. I think that was referring to a toroid. So when we talk about nuclear fission and nuclear fusion, and you bring up these toroid um, shapes that occur that can look like a donut, well, what's in the hole? Um, so I think that'd be an interesting one. If anybody knows more about that, feel free to jump in. Um, and the Cold War, uh, perhaps the Cold War was not what we thought it was. Perhaps the reason we don't want other nations to become nuclear is because then they get contacts with the other beings. So there's something that deals with nuclear, whether it be fission or fusion or hydrogen or whatever. Is there something in nuclear that distorts the time-space continuum that brings these beings here, or that allows us to contact them, what have you? And then my last point, of a discussion, which I think was huge, and it ties in with the Harold Malmgren interview, would be and it also ties in with Hal Puthoff, by the way, and David Grush, the Italy 33 crash with the Vatican. Now, Corso is not my general area of research. I do research and I do not want to change the topic to the Victor Alien interview and stuff like that with John Stewart. Him and I do a lot of that. But they use Carthusian monks, and Carthusian monks are obviously Catholic, and they respond to the Vatican and stuff like that. And so you've got the Knights of Malta, you've got the Vatican, everything else, and the higher I go on the Carthusian monk order, the harder it is to get information. And I've gotten pretty high, and I've gotten some good information. So I find that fascinating that not only did Corso Jr. bring it up, Grush brings it up, Pudak brings it up. We've we've heard about this multiple times. Uh, to put a bunch of pins together, it's almost to the point now where we're waiting now Leo the 14th to just bring it out. So, anyways, those are my initial takeaways, and thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, no, those are great takeaways. The idea that that cloning, they walk among us. But even, my mind is wrapped around. I'm outside right now. I'm going to go back in and I'll pull that book, and we can talk about the timelines thing. That would be really great. But let's get to the
Yes.
hands. Jeff,
J Just was first. I don't know if JP has his hand up. I can't see, but then Chan and then Lightning.
Yeah, I guess I should ingest a little, but I'm a little confused about how they're trying to help us by giving us tech and then infiltrating our bases and bothering, um, the Navy ships as well, I guess, because there's nukes on them. But like, who is it? What is it? Is it the timeline? The Malviers say they have bases. Why do they have bases here if they're from another timeline? Or are they from another planet? It's a little confusing.
I
So
think that I
I
think that you're in a way. Sorry, Urs, real quick. That what we talked about earlier, and I'll say it again. I think that we're dealing with, if this is correct, then it would be multiple timelines, multiple species from different universes, multiverses. You know what I mean? So maybe different species have come here and that would be the alien abductions, which is also on my research list to sit down and eventually just sit down and like dig through that. But to get to that, I think that quite possibly, I mean, maybe it is future humans that are like, okay, we need to get this tech to us so that they can, like we have to keep the time. Sorry, it's Sunday. Here comes the
maybe they
motorcycles.
want to change their timelines, but could you imagine, like trying to explain this to the public? I mean, in totality, if you were trying to explain it, like you could explain part of it, but trying to explain the whole thing, I think that would be another, not that they would go crazy, but they would go, wow, like
It's true because it brings me back to Jesse Michaels. He was all for disclosure, and then all of a sudden he's like, that's a Pandora's box. Is this the Pandora's box? I don't know what he means by the Pandora's box, but quite possibly, Jay, just you touch on that, and it does seem like this could be. How do you explain this? Like, I mean, it took me like to get to, like, I first listened to this in October, and it was like, this isn't a UFO issue, this is a time travel issue, and I was like, what? I walked away. I looked at my boyfriend. I didn't tell him anything because he thinks I'm weird
you're
anyway.
talking about
And I was like,
Sarfati, right?
no, I'm talking about, I watched this interview back in
Oh, I
October.
see, I see, I see, I see.
Yeah, and I walked away from it, and I didn't tell my boyfriend, but what I did say is we have to now start watching a bunch of timeline movies. I'm really into time travel movies right now. And he was like, "Okay, I'm down." I was like, "All right." I didn't tell him why. I pulled away from that. But I did. I ended up, we watched a couple of things. I thought that was, really interesting, and then Christmas came and kind of took my mind away from it. But anyway,
His boyfriend is not Jack Sarfati, just so everybody knows.
oh yeah, no, he's not.
Though he'd
But
probably like it to be.
he's one of my favorite personalities. I'll tell you that. Go ahead, Urs, and then
uh,
we'll
I
get
was
to the
just
hymns.
I was just going to add that it is kind of alluded to time travel in Jesse Michaels, Thomas Townsend Brown's podcast. But also going back, I've been talking about time travel in this community for a long time. I mean, ever since I started speaking. I think sometimes people laughed at it, but here we are. We've come a ways, and people are beginning to believe that time travel is real and that the multiverse might exist. And I think that's an exciting time. That all these men in history are alluding to that.
Also, if Jack is listening in the Anon, or anyone's listening in the Anon and want to fill us in on some of this science, we'd really welcome you to come up.
Actually, JP's supposed to.
Yeah, and I invited Jack, and he said that he's super busy right now, but I was like, we would love to have you. Believe me, I would love to pick your brain on this. Hopefully, we'll get him eventually. But yeah, let's get to the hands. I don't know who is next. I apologize.
Chen, Lightning, Robert, and wait, JP, then Robert.
Hi guys, yeah, I just think amazing, just very good. Thank you, Sarah. It triggered a lot of memories in me. And I think that a lot of the thing we have to look at is the language we're using, that or the language I'm using is it could be a timeline, but as Ursula said, multiverse, and so it could be parallel universes that are running in tandem. Yes, it's timeline, but it's parallel universes. These things that we're thinking are they're clones. They're not actually clones. They could just be fractals. So at a higher dimension, they could just be breaking off a fractal of their piece to send back to the, well, not send back, send forward, send around, because it's a synchronic order. The whole thing is circular and radial in time. And this idea of technology, we should be looking at consciousness instead of this idea of technology, that it might just be consciousness driven. Some other things, the white sands really resonated with me. It's there's a sign in our teachings that teaches us about this white sand energy and the cave. And he said the China was allowed to go onto the one side. I can tell you guys why. There are four different bands. The white, the red, the white, the blue, and the yellow. You guys are living in the blue. I'm actually living in the red. But in China, yeah, the red band, they've got a ancestral connection to some of these NSIs or the ETs on that side. There are different groups of them, and then another thing which is pretty wild to think of in the Mayan calendar, we have this glyph number 13, which is sky. It's actually Skywalker. The 13th glyph is Skywalker from the movie, and interestingly enough, the original word for Skywalker in the Mayan language is Ben Skywalker. So how did they make a movie about a 5,000-year-old culture that is today? The Death Star as well, symbolic of this time-destroying device that could have hit Rome. They could have given this information to this Roman area, and this is why the artificial timeline popped up, and why we've have to go back in time to restore and scrub the timelines, clean the timelines. And the other thing, the macabre thing. There are two different types in my teachings, in our teachings as well. There's the singular, which is diamond. It's a double. It's a double terminated crystal. That's a singular one. But if you're doing group time travel, it looks like a flower. You join you join the macabres, and it looks like a flower shape. Um, and the last thing, yes, just thank you very much for Sarah, Ursula, and Brian. Amazing. Your voices and your consciousness, amazing. And Akela Matakwe Esena Chechito Aloha for all of our relations. In Lakesh Alakin, I am another yourself. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, and thank you for being here. Stay here. We'll get into more topics of convo. I'm sorry. Who was next?
Lightning, and then JP, and then Robert, and then Pix.
Thank you, Urs.
Wow, Botan, I love everything you say, brother. Everything. Whenever you talk, I am so I'm like in awe, and I'm just like riveted by every word. I would love to speak to you, and just I just love that information. That was great. And I would elaborate on that. I think I like that. So we got to consider possibilities that are like just out of the realm of anything anyone has ever talked about in regular society. So that this the force, what they're in Star Wars, all of these things that they're revealing to us. Yoda is actually, from my research, a demon which they believe can be summoned, and in the new trilogy of Star Wars, I believe it's revealed that Luke Skywalker is doing all of this through astral projection. So he's not actually in any of these places. He's astrally projecting from Alderaan, I believe it is. I'm not, Star Wars isn't my main focus. But these things are clearly real. That these light beings are us. They're beautiful beings. My experiences with them have been the most beautiful experiences of my life. It saved my life. I love our galactic family, but you're not meant to be in awe of them. You're meant to reunite with them, because what I've been told is that all of the light beings that have visited me are myself. And this just gives me so much 5D energy when I say this, because if these beings are us, if the beings that are visiting us are us, I believe that we are really unifying in a way that we are climbing back up the tree of life. We are unifying with the source, and at the highest level, we're all one. Like our souls are intertwined. So as our souls go up, they are linked. But at the highest level, we're one. So there are no souls. There's just one. And I am so grateful to be here with you guys. I know that the Galactic Federation strategically placed white hats, and the galactic activation is happening now. We're meeting back up with our soul pods. We're reuniting with the people who we've been with for billions of lives. I love you guys. So grateful to be here and want to hear more. I don't even want to speak because everything I've heard has been like a key piece of the puzzle for me.
Amazing. Thank you, JP. Yeah, no, welcome. JP.
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, I just want to be really brief here because you just asked a question about that warp reactor, and so far as I know, it was just a funding issue, is what I heard. So
Can you
yeah,
refresh? Can you refresh what you're
oh
referencing?
yeah,
Thanks.
okay. So this was an experiment that in part was part of its purpose was to create a very high sort of artificial gravity. Um, and it was supposed to use some of the principles that Jack Sarfati has been outlining on Twitter and podcasts and stuff. And basically, he's got this theory that you could create a gravitational, like an artificial gravitational field. In the case of the reactor, it's by creating a very dense plasma focused plasma beam, and it would create a really high relativistic mass, and it would create a small warp bubble of 16,000 Gs. Now, I don't know how you would measure that, like experimentally, how that would all work, but the reactor was planned. It had other purposes as well, but that was one of the sort of the things that it was supposed to focus on. But it's I believe it's on hold, in sort of indefinite hold right now, and that was in Livermore, California.
All right, so John Philippe, just real quick, if I could just interrupt. I brought up trying to change mass with Jack Sarfati and laughed at me. And what we heard in the interview that you both Sarah played with Phil Corso Jr. was about density fields. So explain to us and the idiots, me being one of them, is there a difference between changing density or mass?
Well, I'm kind of an idiot too to start with, but like density is just mass over a certain volume, right?
That's what I'm wondering. And so this is why I if you can change the mass of something, then therefore you can change the density. This is why I joked earlier that if Jack Sarfati has not called you a schmuck, then you haven't lived. And he called me a schmuck for bringing that up. So
I,
I know I'm kind of joking here and putting you on the spot, but boy,
I think
yeah, if you can change the mass and or density, I mean, are these interchangeable or are they completely separate?
okay. Well, there's this concept of inertial mass and relativistic mass, if I understand correctly. And what he's talking about is inertial mass, because there are people talking about inertial mass reduction projects, and he believes that's nonsense. And so what he's talking about with the plasma beam is relativistic mass, and this is based on Einstein's equation equals mc squared. So so if something increases its some mass, increases its energy, then it can have higher gravity.
Sure. So do you think that equation has been altered? Do you think there's something missing from that?
Which
If this is going to go to Weinstein and everything else, as far as do we think that we have our physics wrong? And I think that this is core to a lot of this.
No,
and I just want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, what Sarfati has been saying, if I understand correctly, is that he's not saying that at all. He's saying the opposite. He's saying that there's been some nuance that has been missed in the compact form of the Einstein field equation, which is kind of like the core of relativity. And there's a term there, g over c to the fourth, but c is the speed of light, and so g over c to the fourth. So he calls that the gravitational coupling constant, and he introduces something called the Sarfati coupling, or Sarfati factor, or S factor, and it has to do with c, and c is the speed of light. And most people think speed of light is constant, but not quite, because
yes, this is exactly where I want to go. Exactly right. So if you can change the speed of light, or if you can modulate it, then therefore you can use that modulation to move things, right? Because you've got extra energy. If you modulate it, slow it down, speed it up, et cetera, et cetera. If you can play with the speed of light, could you move things?
Well, you can. He says you can create some, what he calls a gravity back reaction. So if you pulse energy through a material with like a different index of refraction, which is basically proportional to the speed of light, and he talks about materials called Bose-Einstein condensates, or Froelich condensates. So this is a material, or a metamaterial, like a sophisticated material in which the speed of light is radically reduced. And so if you pulse power through such a material, then you can create a kind of artificial gravity, and that's what would propel your craft.
Okay, and that, I don't mean to take over the space here, Sarah, but I find this very interesting because the law of thermodynamics, right? I mean, let's just go back to basics. If you can reduce the speed of light, therefore you have another, you've got something on the other end. Is that gravity bending or something else? I mean, where does that light go? Where does that reduction go? And perhaps somebody else can speak better on this than me. But I think that's a great point. And I'm going to mispronounce your name, John Felipe. Yeah,
that's good. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay,
so
yeah.
So what I just want to, one last thing is, like I'm going to post something in the pill there, that are Tim Ventura videos, were with the Alternative Propulsion Engineering Conference.
Yes, so Tim's great. I've talked with him many times. Great guy.
Oh, great. Yeah. So he's, he makes content in which he explains the efforts of a bunch of, like, tinkers and amateurs, and like the mad scientist types, and these guys are awesome. Maybe some of their stuff is bunk, maybe some of their stuff is good, but it's great fun. So yeah, I'll post something related to the warp reactor, where it's an interview with Michael G. Anderson, who's the lead pulse power scientist at Livermore, and the other stuff about some stuff about inertial mass reduction.
Great. Thank you, John Felipe. And I didn't mean to hog everybody else's space here, but I really want to hit on that point.
No, I love it. I love it. We should dig in when someone is bringing that. And JP, thank you. If Jack is listening, I hope you're calling us all schmucks right now. Robert, go for it.
Hey, Sarah. Steve was in here earlier, but he backed out. When Steve came out in his X space around a year ago, for those unfamiliar with Steve, he's a former CIA officer who had his consciousness effectively hijacked for like 72 hours. Steve mentioned that the non-human intelligence mentioned to him that time traveling wizards at the CIA were messing with the timelines and causing problems. In the Philip Corso Jr. interview, Corso mentioned sitting at a table with representatives from the Dalai Lama and the Air Force. And it was mentioned that unless you travel through time with benevolent intentions, it creates negative consequences that echo back to your timeline. Um, I was just had a question for the panel. What do you think the CIA time travelers are doing other than maybe intelligence collection? And have you guys come across any research kind of demonstrating how that might be rippling back to our timeline?
I personally have not come across anything yet. I mean, I'm going to throw this out, secret space program, 20 and back. I know. Don't get freaked out, guys. I'm not turning. But I am saying that I am finding some interesting links there. I'm not going to reveal anything yet because I'm not done researching it. And there's a couple of people I'm trying to reach out to. I have a laundry list of people that I want to interview privately and on the record, but also wouldn't mind bringing them into a space. I don't know if that would actually happen, but what I am trying.
And Sarah, if I could back you up right there, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not endorsing Corey Good, but for example, if we look at, and Robert, you know this, that if we look at David Grush's New York interview when he was talking to investors, when he was thinking that he was not being recorded, he talked about the craft that manipulated time and space. You know, it looked, I don't know what, 30 or 40 feet wide, but you walk into it, it was the size of a football field. And so that 100% jives with your question and John Philippe's analysis as well, as well as Corso Jr. I mean, this is all coming together here, and I don't know how much longer, in my opinion, with AI and everything else, that they're going to be able to hold this together.
I mean, so really quick, to get to that point. Yes, and there are weird things like it's so Corey Good to me is a pinpoint, an absolute. He did something. Why did he do this? What is the reason? So I am definitely going to go down that rabbit hole at some point. He's on my list. I have an insane Excel spreadsheet with multiple tabs. But regarding this, it's like what I'm doing is not proving one thing or another, and it's sourced information. And how much of that can I find? How much of that, like for instance, Amy Eskridge, and bless her, she was, she did a Zoom interview, but did not know it was going to be publicly released after her untimely death. They released the Zoom interview. You can go watch it. She talks about med beds and how it was in contact with a gentleman named Dan Cooper, who was from this secret space program. Now that's an interesting little tidbit. It's like, am I ready to jump down that time to jump into that one? But that's an interesting thing, and some of the things that he talks about are very unique to some of the stuff that Corey Good was talking about, which is interesting. So immediately, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I can't believe I'm saying that, because all year long everybody always says that phrase in spaces, and I always chuckle. But I'm saying it because I have to look at all things, because was there, was Corey the psyop? Was he a psyop? Was he a psyop to bring? to bring this out and then make it look terrible. And then we all sit there and we're like, oh my God, you're at Corey Good. Screw this. We don't believe it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, correct, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, so that's where, so I'm very open, and I'm also not saying this is really it either. I'm saying that I want to talk with all of you. I want to bring this out. I think that this is something that's unique and interesting, and I'm finding links. And it wasn't until Jack Sarfati was in Red Panda Space and talked about the time travel stuff that JP was talking about, that, you know, all of the science and the physics behind it, that I was like, wait a second, let me go back to this and start pulling stuff from that. So I want to put that out there, that I think that there are links to this. And getting back to Amy Eskridge, she talks about the fact that she had met a couple of people from the secret space program, and they thanked her for creating these med pods, where, you know, I guess you go in there and you're fixed or something. Um, so that's interesting. Now, do I believe that? I don't know, but it's a point. It's a source. So now I have to go back and I have to source that out. And another thing that I just want to put out there, in the Corso interview that we just heard, he talks about the 1957, 1947 Roswell Corona thing. Well, that's an interesting thing, isn't that? So how I need to source that out. And so I have found something. I'm gonna do a deep dive into that. That's like, after I watch the rest of Malcolm, I'll do that. But, and then hopefully, if that's interesting, it's another pinpoint. Let's bring that out. Let's do another space. Let's listen to something else. Because so if anybody has the information on Corona and Roswell, even if it proves that it was just one craft at 1947, great. You know, more of that would be fantastic. Please share information. Another thing that Corso brought up, I'm forgetting right now, sorry. But I'm just saying that, like, there are points in the interview that it's like, this isn't like, here it is, guys, you know, and we'll move on after I say this, but it's more or less like, if this is something, then it's something. And I would like to do a pro and cons. I would like to source out stuff. You know, anyway, I'm just trying to say that so that going forward, people aren't like, Sarah thinks it's time travel. And we are, you know, I don't think that, not yet. I'm just saying, this is quite interesting.
But
So
it could be.
it
But it
could
could
be.
be.
Yes, it could be. It's interesting. And it's just that we have to find the source and the links. And I think it has a lot to do with the 1933 Magenta crash. And I think that Malgrim coming out is amazing. I think that, you know, I'm interested, you know, I haven't listened to the rest of it yet, but I'll get there. Anyway, I'm like so flustered because I feel like I'm not where I want to be, but with my research yet, but it's okay. It's definitely okay. So really quick, we're going to go to
Elections came back up. He had his hand up, and then J Just, then Brian, then Cafetero. Yeah.
I'm good. I'm just listening in.
Okay, Pix. J Just, you're next.
Yeah, so my question is, if they got these med beds from one of these ships that were from our future, does that change the timeline? If they bring them out and utilize them, I really don't understand the science behind this, but I mean, I can imagine why they'd want to keep this secret, because what if it changed the timeline? What if it, like, telling it is the big no-no?
Hi, can I just answer Robert's question quickly, Sarah?
Good.
So he spoke about the time traveling CIA agents and the wizards. Now, if you understand what a wizard is, we use spells, and a spell is not just magic. It also refers to time, a spell of time, a wave spell. Time moves in these waves. So we must understand that maybe it's our future selves are trying to come to some kind of agreement between the wizards and the scientists. And just what your speaker said in that podcast or the interview, really need to come to peace and love and benevolence and harmonizing these two sides. My father and my teacher used to teach me, we have the aboriginal continuity and the civilizational advance. These are the left and the right hemispheres, but also it's represented in the wizards and the scientists, you know, the ancient shaman and the future, you know, scientist, master, chief scientist. So it's really about these two sides of ourselves. We need to bring it together, and we have everything we need to figure it out. And yeah, lots of love. Amazing. Thank you.
Brian was next, and then Cafe. And I'll go after.
No, go ahead, Cafe, please.
So I just put that reference to the guy whose dad was building some energy weapon or whatever. In the in the whatever the bottom right of the phone thing, the chat, so you can see that. Also, I sent you a message. Try that person to see if you can interview because that person knows a lot of. I mean, his name is Ryan Wood. His dad was the one that wrote the book for William Tompkins, and his dad worked at was Lockheed guys. Help me if I'm wrong with that. He worked for an aerospace company, and Ryan Wood has.
So you know Ryan Wood and his dad, or his dad?
I'm saying that she should contact him because he has an archive. He just did a bunch of interviews over the last couple months, and he has an archive with attached to it that you can dig through and ask questions. And he's just a very knowledgeable person. He's going to help you with that Corona question.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that, Cafe. In fact, he shared with me, and UFO Sarah has a copy of it, the master MJ12 list. What him and his dad have been working on. His dad since passed. Obviously, you probably know that. We've got the master MJ12 list, and one of the people on those lists, by the way, is the general of Philip Corso Jr. And so that's
Trudeau, right? Trudeau.
yes, Arthur Trudeau. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't
I'm
bring up the name,
curious.
but yeah.
Did you ever do a deep dive to see if the Mr. Trudeau that used to be president of Canada is related?
Not unfortunately.
Just
So just so everybody knows here, we all have little individual points of research, in my opinion. And so I'm kind of on the Victor Alien interview point of research. I know that Elections got his own research, Science Bob's got his own, and UFO Sarah recently, if I could speak for you, that she's been on the Corso, the father and son research path, and so we try to connect, and I think this has been absolutely amazing because it's connected a lot of things for me, um, and so that's what we're trying to do here as well. And so when you bring up, um, I find that very interesting. I guess
What was important for me because my mother and I were arguing with each other. She's a doctor, so she knows everything. She's in her 80s, and it was in Ryan Wood's archive that there was a memo from Einstein admitting his knowledge of all this stuff. And then she came to me and she said, "Oh my God, you're right." It was just so it's kind of that because he has old documents and stuff like that. And I think that if you listen to the William Tompkins interviews and you listen to the Ryan Wood interviews, he's I mean he's a very good source of information.
yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I've also invited Tom Whitmore to this space. I don't know if he's here or not or listening, but he's also done, in my opinion, the yeoman's work on the MJ12 list. And Tom Whitmore is the foremost expert. I consider the Woods an expert as well. But it'd be interesting to ask the same questions of Thomas Whitmore. He's extremely knowledgeable. So that would be.
I also put in there was there's an interview, the Darcy Weir interview with I think it was what's his name from New Jersey, the guy from New Jersey. I forget what his name is. Anyway, but that talks
Julian
about
Story.
Julia. And that talks about debunking the whole Gaia, Corey, whatever, and what's his name? What's the other guy?
Corey Good Emery Smith, all of that. You know.
Well, much trouble. I mean, they criticized it. Well, it was really about guy Corey Good. And what's the other guy you mentioned? The guy that does
Wilcox. Wilcox.
Wilcox. So he was talking about what was really going on there. So I don't know if you believe it or not, but it was a pretty interesting conversation.
Yeah, and just to say, like with Corey Good, I've just I learned about him a year ago when Jason Sands came out because everyone was like, oh my God, Jason Sands is another Corey Good, and I was like, oh no, what is this? So I had to look into that. I don't, again, I need to look into all of this. But another point that I want to that I just remembered is the Philadelphia experiment that Corso Jr. brings up. He also talks about the Battle of the Atlantic, and that is where the bombs, that they started to use the space time stuff to move the bombs so that they wouldn't. So that's something that I can look like. That's almost. I almost feel like it's easy, but I don't think it's that easy. But I'm definitely gonna look into that. I want to understand what happened at the Battle of the Atlantic. Is what he's talking about something that's in our history books, or has someone else written about it? I also have a couple of things on the Philadelphia experiment. X Files did a great episode on that. Just kidding, but yeah. So there's a lot of avenues to go down, but mainly, I think what we're looking at is our history has been, quite possibly messed with, and the Mandela effects. I know, woo! Everybody, put your woo hat on. Because I have them. I mean, the cornucopia thing, yeah, I got that. I'm a Berenstein, not a Berenstain. Very much that freaked me out most of all, because I loved my Berenstein books when I was a kid. So, I'm just saying that in general, these are interesting. And Sarfati actually brings that up. And then he did an episode with SOR, and and someone brought up the man, and he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He said something along the lines of, I used to think that was ridiculous, but now I'm looking at it. And so just to throw that out there into the conversation as well.
Posting the 1942 newsreel of Battle over Los Angeles, which I found the other night. I'm going to post it here.
Yeah, so there's some really interesting stuff. Like, for instance, I came across a possibility that Tesla actually figured all of this out early on. And there's supposedly, so I'll put this out there to the audience. There's supposedly a picture of a gorilla in a cage, and then there's two cages in the picture. And he was actually testing moving the gorilla from one cage to another. Now, that to me is, I've only have one source for that. That's fine. I did a whole bunch of stuff, FOIA request. I did National Archives. I did another place, and then also Tesla has a museum or a library in Europe, and so I reached out to them, and I have not heard back. So I got to do a follow up on that. So there's a couple of ways of just trying to figure out, and then also I found out that during the time period of Tesla, there was something, and I'm sorry, forgive me here, that happened where a lot of his paperwork was collected and put under an act where no one else could look at it. And, so there's a lot of fishy stuff. So I'm not sure we're going to definitely get that picture, but I'm, hoping somebody might have a lead, and also just talking about it out loud to the community sometimes helps. Getters.
Yeah, I was gonna go down the maybe they are kind of acclimating us to the multiverse all along, like from Philip K. Dick, is that? And even with the Marvel universe, so that now we are at the age where, we're the stage in our civilization where we're more open to it. As would this have been this way, maybe would people have been more accepting in the 60s, even though it was happening, like they said that there was a jump in technology. And so, and I don't know if you remember him saying somewhere that they use 4 batteries to power a vehicle. There was also a few other things that was mentioned that we didn't really talk about. So just all of this, it's so interesting. And like with Phil Corso saying all that, I wonder what he has now. I mean, I wish, like you said, we could, have a chat with him 6 years later, right?
Yeah, because there's a couple of things where he was like, I'm not, I'm not ready to talk about that. But then he was like, I can talk about this. And, you know, um, so it would be great if we could actually, catch up with him. He is getting older. Bless his heart. I hope he lasts a long time and that someone can reach out and chat with him if
Have you
none of
tried,
us can.
Sarah?
I have. I'm working on it currently. Everyone pray for me. Hopefully we can someone can get a hold of him. But I really quick, so a couple of years ago I went down the consciousness rabbit hole, and this was what I wanted to just quickly talk about. Anthony Peake, fascinating author about consciousness. In his book, Is There Life After Death? I just really quick want to bring this out in the idea that maybe we are all have our own timelines. And he references 1997 Max Tegmark, and he states, and I'm just going to read this paragraph. So let's go back to the start of the experiment and experience it from the worldview of the assistant. So basically, the idea here is the assistant follows the instructions as given by his boss. He presses the trigger 3 times, and on each occasion, the gun clicks. However, on the fourth attempt, the subatomic the subatomic particle has downspin. A bullet falls into the stock and the trigger engages. A bullet flies out of the barrel and crashes through the skull of the experimenter, the boss, killing her instantly. In a blind panic, he telephones the police and is arrested for murder. And so on the opposite side, the gun didn't work. So in the what he's trying to say here is that in the boss's timeline, the gun doesn't work because the boss is the observer of his own time or of her own timeline. So, and in the experiment, and, obviously this is an experiment, it's kind of like a theoretical
It's
deal.
Schrodinger's cat, right?
Exactly. And so, yes, it's Schrodinger's cat. Like, so, and the assistant, it does work because she's in her own, he's in his own timeline. So I'm throwing that out there as a thought process. This is something that has stuck with me for years. I referenced it before in Spaces. It's something I'd like to come back to. It gives me hope in the sense of where we are, like why sometimes we have near death experiences, but we come back.
Yes,
Like there,
yes.
yeah.
And
Just throwing.
I think there's millions of billions of time frames. I mean, why not one or two? I mean, that's ridiculous. Why not multiples? Why doesn't everyone have their own? Why is it not personal to you or everything else? I think that makes more sense. You're exactly right, Sarah. I don't mean to
Well,
interrupt you, but
if consciousness is important, and Alexander said that, maybe the universe is viewed through that somehow, and that somehow moves the universe. So each of us have that.
yeah, that makes sense too. And then, but is there a collective consciousness? Does that all coalesce into one being? Would be the argument for the existence of a God, or no? I would
Like
say
we are the
yes, but
universe experiencing itself.
Yeah.
And
Also,
just to, oh,
sorry, go ahead.
well, just to keep in mind really, really quick that I found it very interesting that as Corso Jr. is talking about all of this, he still references only God knows. You know what I mean? I find that very interesting when I listen to these people talking about stuff that their faith, like Jason Sands, his experiences, but he's very much Christian, Bible, you know what I mean? Like he holds his faith, he holds that faith. Um, John Ramirez talks about the fact that he and his wife, how beautiful that, if they were to be, if they were to go, part ways, be abducted, go, they would be okay with leaving each other. So every time that I hear someone speaking about the phenomenon, overall, it's very interesting to see what their faith is, what their end game thought process is, and keeping that in mind as we move forward, because quite possibly they might know, way more than, obviously, if this is real, than we do. And so what is their actual faith? What is their or not faith? So it's just very interesting.
Yeah, sir, just real quick, I know this hand's up, but I do want to say one thing. I'm hoping to talk with John longer. I got a chance to meet John and Lou Elizondo almost at the same time, and I got the exact opposite impression. Lou was putting on a show. He's being a host, which we've all done, so I don't blame Lou for that. But when I got to meet John Ramirez, he was the most disarming, nice. He almost felt to me that when I shook his hand that he knew something that I didn't, and that he knew more about me than I did. I mean, he was that kind of guy when you meet him. John Ramirez, if you ever get to shake his hand and meet him, really impressive individual. So I'm hoping to spend some more time with him in the future. But I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yeah, Lightning, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that was wonderful information, and I just want to expand upon this. I mean, I don't have any inside sources, but I have done extensive research, and I wasn't necessarily sure before the last few days that this was entirely accurate, but to me, it seems like it's verifiable at this point that these secret space programs have been operating for a very long time. From my research, they come to people as children, and they are engaged in a training program of 20 years in facilities. I believe they said on Mars. Now, obviously, this is hard to believe, but everything that we're finding out is extremely hard to believe in the old world. And to me, I think this is something that we should consider, that because they do have verifiable, they have ships designed to go to space. Boeing, I believe they're called Star something. They were made in the 70s. They can carry 300 people, and they are capable of going into space. So that is technology that they had in the 1970s. And in 1946, there was the Battle of Washington, D.C. This was taped, it was recorded in the press.
1952.
1952? My mistake.
1952.
So in 1952, there was the Battle of Washington, D.C. And this is another one of these events. And my research is showing me, I do believe that there's a difference between there's the extraterrestrials, the light beings who are in a higher vibrational etheric level, but they are of all the same types of, Nordics, reptilians. I believe, I met a mantis being that was a light being. But my research is now also showing me, I thought that the aliens were all false flag military abductions. But now I do believe that there are fallen creatures, reptilians, Dracos, which they were planning a genocide in 2007, that they built tunnels under Washington, D.C. in the shape of the Orion constellation, all verifiable. They FEMA built, millions of coffins. Alex Jones and Jesse Ventura filmed it. I posted the pictures of that. I mean, you can find it. That on Jesse Ventura's conspiracy show, they took this woman and told him in 2007 that they were going to create a vaccine. They were going to force people to take it. It was going to be for a so-called cold, and then they would put varying levels of squalene in it, and they would put the squalene in more and more in the recurring doses. So the fact that anybody even said that they were planning this, it just shows all this is planned. I mean, if you read The Sacred Cure by Trevor Coppola, Noah, at Truon X, it's free. It's free. You can download it for free. It has all the cures for these pharmaceutical poisonings. All pharmaceuticals are poison because they're petrochemicals. Nelson Rockefeller, you all know it. The Fortner report.
Really, yeah. Just because I want to throw out there that what I do find is really interesting is that I had done a deep dive into the underground systems and all of that. And there was a TV show called Decoded. There was a TV, and then Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory. I do remember those. Those were quite interesting. But and they talk about the underground tunnels and the city under the Ozarks. And just recently, the woman came forward on whose podcast? Very energetic personality, and she just dropped, that we have all of these underground bases with tunnel systems. And I mean, this is all
It was on Tucker Carlson.
yeah.
Catherine Smith.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And so, like, I was looking into this decade, over a decade ago, in 2011. I have a map in my living room. I had with like the crazy strings and 3x5 index cards of all a lot of the not all of the underground areas, but a lot of them, and possibilities of. It was for a TV show I was writing. I needed to do some research on. Not that it got picked up or anything, but I'm just saying that, like, this is why I got involved in that. And it's interesting how all of these things are coming out now. You know, because I was told that, we don't have all of these underground things. Shush, little girl. And it's like, no, we do. I think we do, and it makes sense because even in Washington D.C. Now, I would ask if the Lightning, if you wouldn't mind DMing me or putting the links in the pill below so that we can follow up on the. I would love to source out the constellation underneath of DC. You do bring up 1952, which is something that I came across with the secret space program. Now, again, I've only sourced this to, I think, at least one person. I might have a second source on this, but that 1952, like, if we were talking about time travel, that the Nazis technically used time travel to come in 1952. This is just a story now. I'm not saying I believe this, but that they arrived, that it wasn't a battle. It was basically them arriving over DC, and that Congress was in session that day. It was June 19th. They were, yes, this is correct. Actually, if you do look this up, they were in session. They were voting on a patent bill. That is all verifiable. I have multiple sources for that, but the 1952 aerial over DC, you can actually source that. It was a UFO flap, they called it. So did the Nazis come down and change time by making it so that they won? And I don't know, but that's the story. And then the story goes from there. The United States didn't like that, so they went back in time and changed it. I mean, so it's quite interesting. I don't know much about it, but it's definitely a dig to learn more. I think starting with 1933, Magenta, the Vatican is absolutely involved. It's definitely something that needs further discussion. I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of this just sounds outright outlandish. It really does. I mean, I definitely, it took me a while to even think I should even look into it. And then, am I wasting my time? I don't know. I'm having a good time looking into it. So I don't necessarily think I'm wasting my time. I think it's interesting. I love talking about this stuff. If we are on to something, at least we're coming together and we're discussing it. And I've made friends along the way, so I can't go wrong. I'd like to wrap up the space just because we have been going for over 3 hours. So if anybody has any last minute or last pieces of something they want to say. Oh, Matthew, I see you down there. I'm sorry. Please, let's do a last uh remarks, and go ahead, Matthew.
I just want to say thanks for hosting the space. First of all, I love spaces like this because it really triggers a lot of things that I've learned in the past and wasn't sure if it was true, but it's like helps me tie together so much stuff. So I'm a firm believer, like TV shows in general, they show us for a form of soft disclosure. And so just to be succinct with this, succinct as possible with my point, So my teacher, one of my mentors, he taught me numerology and Chinese astrology. And so one of the things he mentioned to me, and he does remote viewing as well, that the Roswell was actually a timeline. They changed the timeline as a negative timeline for us to to basically make sure JFK was assassinated in the future. And so I thought that was interesting because everything that's going on in this space kind of ties me back to that. Like the show, what's the show? Travelers on Netflix goes back to how they changed the timeline then, and then there's another show, excuse me, called the Umbrella Academy, where they actually go back in time and change the timeline in that show as well. So I thought that was interesting.
No, I love that. I love that. I do think that like sometimes, after I did a little bit of this deep dive, I haven't gone too far. I think what's very interesting is that what we had confirmed, Robert, go with me on this one. Marvel is quite possibly the time traveling program. Confirmed by did John Ramirez confirm that? Am I correct? Or
So John,
did he say he couldn't talk about it? He's not
so
talking about it.
I asked him the wrong name. I think I asked him like Maverick or some other M
Maven.
name. I was like, "Are you Maven? Are you part of the time travel program?" Maven, and he said, "I like the M. I can't talk about that or anything like that." And anyone read into something like that isn't allowed to talk about it. And then he mentioned Steve's X space where it was effectively shut down. Um, but I think I actually got clarification from Steve on that. He was referring to Steve in his X space. He mentioned asking about the program to another CIA officer, and they shut it down. So I think that's what John Ramirez was mentioning. But I having interacted with John privately in the past, I think John was confirming. He certainly wasn't denying this time travel program. And if there wasn't, I'm confident John Ramirez would have come out and said, "There's nothing to that. I've never, that's bullshit." He would have given some inference to that direction, but he did not at all. And he encouraged everybody to read into it what they thought. So his denial, or not being able to speak about it. So I took it as confirmation, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I as well, which made me laugh. I remember I had like sort of a funny mental breakdown laugh where I was like, they're fucking putting it in our faces. Marvel, the Marvel universe, and then so maybe disclosure is Endgame, Avengers Endgame, followed by the Loki TV show, which is all about timelines and the controlling of the timelines and everything. I don't know. But to go with what you were saying, Matthew, yes, I do believe that soft disclosure is absolutely in Hollywood. CIA has had their hands in that for a long time. And, who knows what exactly Spielberg's film will be about, what that will be centered around. Will it be time travel? What will he, I don't know, so that'll be exciting. Cafetero, and then Chan, and then we can go with Urs and Brian.
So just close it. First of all, I really like your emceeing. It's super fun. You're a good host. You're good. It's good. Anyway, you should check out this guy Robert Sepper,
No,
Sephr,
don't
Sepher.
check him out, Sarah.
Huh?
He's a big proponent that that the Holocaust didn't happen. Okay.
No. He's Jewish. That's not true. He's not. He's not. That's not true.
No.
Anyway,
This is son of Holocaust survivors, and I can tell you that millions of people were murdered in Ukraine, but in Germany, that was a lie. That was a psyop designed by the
Oh
U.S.
my
government to
God.
detract from the
Okay.
real genocide. And I can tell you, this is
Everybody stop. This is not the space for anything dealing with Ukraine or Nazis. I'm just going to stop this right now. We can start another space and we can talk about that.
I can't finish here. Anyway, the guy's a really he's an anthropologist, and I really like it because he has like.
All right, good. Why don't Chen go next? Chen Votan. I'm sorry if I'm
Yeah.
pronouncing that wrong. Go ahead, Sean.
No, it's fine. I just, yeah, I wanted to speak to Ursula's point and your point actually. If you think, and this is the non-woo section. The non-woo section is we were all born at a different period of time and a different space-time location. So our reference points would be perfectly aligned to our space-time coordinates, which means our these parallel universes that we were talking about, they're converging. And where do they converge? They converge in time, in the now. All of these space time points are converging, but we definitely have different versions of them because our reference points are not the same. We were born in exactly different time, location, special locations, and the religious people would say it's your life path, or it's what you're meant to learn this life. It's your contract and so such forth. But the woo stuff, yeah, the woo stuff, yeah, that the parallel universes are exactly the same. The structure of them looks exactly the same. They just look completely different across, depending on your reference points and what you picked up that lifetime. They'll look different per universe. So every person's um their order will look different. However, that order is the same across all of them. So that's how we can have these conversations and stuff. If that
Hey,
makes
Sharon, can
any
I ask you
sense.
a question? I don't want to bogart
Sure.
us her space here. I know she's trying to wind it down, but it if that's true, then how do you explain love? So let's say a male and a female. Where did their lines intersect? How does that work as far as when you really fall in love with someone? And I know everybody's not had that feeling before, but when you really fall in love with somebody or you really connect with somebody, where do those lines
Yeah,
intersect? If I may,
my
just real quick.
my teacher used to say that intimacy is the basis of telepathy, actually, and psychic understanding.
Thank you. Finally, yes. Thank you.
Intimacy, yeah, you have to be clear, you have to have that loving feeling, and as soon as you have that loving feeling, and that's why all of these best researchers, they'll have this really good feeling, they'll because they've connected on those levels. Yeah, but intimacy is the basis for telepathy. There you go.
So I would love to do a space on this because I've got a whole and there's a few people back here that have heard me talk about this before. It's in the eyes, and that's really what does it. But anyways, I think that's a great point, Shannon. I thank you for that. And I'm sorry, Sarah, I jumped in.
No, no, no. I just wanted to say that I totally get that. One of the things I like, it's a sappy moment. Been with my boyfriend for over 13 years, knew of him 4 years prior. Um, but I always say to him, we have walked this life together before for some weird reason. I've known you. I will find you in the next life. He always says, I'll listen for that meat cracking a beer. So I'm like, all right, you got it. So, just throwing that out there, I do feel that way. Even with people I meet and we connect right away. It's like, wow, were we like sisters in another timeline? Where, were we, this is so bizarre how, people that, I've had great connections with, and then, years pass and then you meet up again and it's like no time has gone at all. It's quite beautiful. I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah. So Brian and Urs.
Yeah, just real quick, I want to say thank you to you, Sarah. I mean, you've done a lot of work, and for a lot of people back here that don't know, even though I've only given Sarah a little bit of info or some info, but she's been doing a lot of research, and so she should be congratulated. So I want to say thank you, Sarah. You do a great job, and I hope I'm just a small part of it, trying to give you as much info as I possibly can. And I try to reach out to my sources and everything else. But I thought the questions from everybody else that were here were amazing, and if I could just sum this up and go forward, I think what we need to focus on in the future is going to be Grush, put off Italy, Knights of Malta, that the Vatican, Carthusian monks. I think there's a there there. I've been on it with the Victor Alien interview, trying to. John Stewart's done a good job, but I'm trying to rein him in. I know it's not everybody's bag, but I think there's a there, and I think we can connect those points. Thank you.
Really quick, Earth, before you go, Brian, like, thank you. But also, I don't know if you saw that I tagged you in a comment for someone that actually found another source for Dan Bursch, and I was like, woohoo, because I was working with John on that too, and my biggest thing was I was lacking source material for Dan Bursch. So if you can pass that along to John.
Okay, so you haven't talked about this fully then, Sarah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, no, because you said that you had the name. Um, well, let's not get into it now.
Yes,
But if you could,
we will
if you
not.
could repost, if you could repost that to me, and I'd be happy to have another space about this. I'm an open book on this stuff. I'm not hiding a lot of info or any info for that matter, unless it, harms somebody. That's the only reason why I would hide anything.
Yeah, no, I think like if you guys are down, Urs and Brian, what we could do is I have a lot more stuff that we could possibly throw up and do another one of these listening parties again,
Yeah.
with just some stuff that I've
Yeah,
come across,
sure.
like Dan Cooper. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but look him up. He's quite an interesting character.
Yeah, so we didn't talk. Perhaps we should do it. Let's just think about this. Just real quick, I'd be curious to get the audience's opinion. Should we do it without talking with each other first, or should we just do it on the fly? Everybody goes
I
stuff.
like both. I like both. I think go with the flow. Go with the flow. Go with your heart. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
that's
not
what I'm kind of
good.
thinking, Chan.
Yeah, I think
Um,
like it's interesting. There's a lot, and there's little pieces that, in the Hal Puthoff interview, again, only like an hour into that, I have to finish.
yes, exactly right. I know.
But
I know.
there are little pieces that are dropped. So, every time you're listening to something, you know, have a notebook there. If you're interested in looking something up or researching it, just make that note. I really encourage that because um really we're getting pieces of the puzzle, and I feel like, these guys might be helping out in a weird way, and then also lying about certain things because maybe they can't, they don't want to tell us everything and all that etc stuff, so you got to read between the lines, and that's what we do here. We decipher everything. But I definitely would love to do another space like this, and soon, because I think this is the top.
Absolutely, Sarah. And I
Yeah,
think you've done good work. So if we want to do something along those lines, more than willing. I got plenty of stuff.
fantastic. Go ahead, Urs.
Oh, where do I start? Oh my gosh. There's Brian, that what you said about love is so interesting, and the fact that we have, that goes into having soulmate, right? And then it goes back into the multiverse of if we have different loves in different lifetimes. I mean, do we love the same person in all those different lives? So that always I've always been so interested in that. So but yeah, thank you for bringing up. And Sarah, oh my God, I have had so much fun. I didn't even know 3 hours had passed. So yeah, going back into all of this like time travel portals. Ross Coldhart did a thing on interviewed I think Jonathan Dover a little bit yesterday. This teleportation, time travel, even like portals, it goes back into a lot of our stories, like a lot of our stories say that we came from somewhere else. A lot of indigenous people have these stories, so I just want to bring that up, and this was so fun. I mean, I haven't, I can talk about this all day. I think time travel is just like the most interesting thing. I think that we all brought up different points, and I think that I do hope that you get Phil Corso Jr. into space. But yeah, I had so much things to say, but it's kind of all gone out, and I just want to say thank you. Yeah, I hope you do more spaces like this. It's really I've had a lot of fun. Thank you, Brian, as well.
Yes. Oh, Earth. Thank you. I love like when you watched it. You said that you've been talking about it in spaces. Your excitement about it, the theories that you brought to the table today. that you've been, I love it. I love your enthusiasm. And that just made me want to even do this even more. I'm like, guys, let's do it on Sunday, and it's Mother's Day. I really didn't realize that, but it's okay. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers, especially mine, who thinks I'm absolutely crazy, which is totally fine. She loves me. That's all that's needed. But yeah, and Brian, thank you so much for co-hosting.
Oh, you rocked, Sarah.
Oh, am I still here? Do you
Yeah.
still? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
No, she's still here. You're more welcome. I had a blast, and thank you to everybody. By the way, just from the co-host unit, you guys rocked with all your questions, and
Yes.
they were really amazing. There were no arguments. I love it. Great. I mean, I think we made some movements here.
Yeah,
I
and I
agree.
love Jay Just's questions. She always brings something to like every space. Thank you, Jay Just. And JP down there.
Yes, and Robert too, and Matthew. You guys,
And
honestly,
Chan.
yes, Chan, thank you guys for coming and being on the speaker panel, and the audience for listening. If you have thoughts and ideas and you don't want to share them publicly, that's okay. Please DM me. This is something I'm doing in my spare time. I just enjoy it. So it's been a pleasure with all of you. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday, the rest of your Mother's Day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next space. And Brian, we'll talk about it, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, guys.
Well done, team. Thank you.